Why only him? We are all shaman grandmasters here, so why did they only give Shaman Yo weapons but not us? We are not any weaker than Shaman Yo. Many of the shaman grandmasters grew agitated at the thought. Hey, what's the meaning of this? Why did you send everything only to him? Why not this shaman too? A shaman grandmaster shouted from mid-air. Yes, war is near. These things should be divided equally. He can't just get everything alone. Someone immediately agreed. Many shamans agreed with the statement, and for a moment, everyone clamored endlessly and the scene turned chaotic. What's all this noise for? The barbarian warrior who led the way rebuked angrily, not giving these shamans grandmasters any face. He looked up and snorted coldly. Who told you that we gave these weapons to Sir Shaman Yo? He bartered his belongings for all of these. Bartered. Impossible. What did he use to exchange for so many weapons? No one could possibly have such huge financial resources to exchange for at least 1,000 weapons that had been piled up at the scene, and more weapons had yet to come. Even a shaman king couldn't have this much wealth to purchase so many weapons. The barbarian leader shook his head and answered, I don't know what Sir Shaman Yo exchanged with the others, but he gave me this. While speaking, he took out a round object. Many barbarian warriors had no idea what it was, but the faces of those shaman grandmasters changed drastically when they saw it and shouted, A monster core! Moreover, it was a notably high-quality monster core. Such a monster core could even be beneficial to the cultivation of a shaman king, let alone shaman grandmasters. Such a monster core was indeed worth a lot of weapons. But no shaman grandmaster would be willing to trade this treasure for weapons that were not useful to himself. In order to get so many weapons, how many barbarian beast cores had Shaman Yo spent? It was scary just thinking about it. Sir Shaman Yo also exchanged this with me. Another shop owner followed up, taking out a similar monster core and waving it in front of the audience, blinding the eyes of the shaman grandmasters. If these various kinds of weapons had great attraction to the ordinary barbarian warriors, these monster cores had just the same effect on the shaman grandmasters. The look they gave Yang Kai changed instantly, as only one question filled their minds. How did he get so many monster cores? A shaman grandmaster was not capable of killing so many powerful barbarian beasts. Not even a shaman king could. Likewise, where were there so many barbarian beasts to kill? Time passed slowly, and after learning the truth of this trade, the clamorous shaman grandmasters were too embarrassed to shout anymore. They could only stare at the weapons placed in front of them with envious looks. Some people were even silently plotting whether they should start building a good relationship with Shaman Yo. Not to mention others, just by getting barbarian beast monster cores from him would be enough to infinitely benefit them. It took until after the sun had set fully for the final barbarian shop owner to bring the last weapons to complete Yang Kai's transaction. There were now thousands of weapons in total piled up on the ground. Bursts of rapid breathing exposed the restless hearts of many surrounding ancient barbarians. The villagers from Blue South Village were even more exhilarated, all of them gulping their own saliva in excitement. After all, they had already guessed what these weapons were going to be used for. They were not fools. On this day, when the invasion of the demon race was announced, the reason why Yang Kai suddenly bought so many weapons was obviously to prepare them for the upcoming war. Nevertheless, Yang Kai's incredible method was still too shocking for them to accept. Who came up to Yang Kai, quietly pulled him aside, and whispered, Anyo, are these things for us? Yang Kai smiled and patted him on the shoulder. Of course, they're for all of you. Then, he waved his hand and invited them. Choose one for yourself. The faces of the thousands of people turned solemn at his words. The shaman apprentices who had secretly complained about Yang Kai's inaction earlier had nothing to say at this moment. Only respect and awe remained on their faces. There were 100 shaman grandmasters gathered outside King City, but who had the capability to collect so many weapons at once? Who could pull off what Shaman Yo did? One must first sharpen their tools before doing good work. With so many sharp weapons, even if there were only 1,000 people in their group, the advantage that they would have was by no means something a mere collection of 2,000 or 3,000 more warriors could compare with. Furthermore, the number of weapons that were stacked up here was definitely more than 1,000 pieces. The several shaman apprentices seemed to be able to foresee what would happen next, and their complaints and dissatisfaction towards Xianxia completely vanished. Despite Shaman Nyo's youthful appearance, it seemed he was completely capable of handling this situation. He seemed to be doing nothing just now, but once he made his move, it delivered a killing blow so devastating that everyone could not help but admire his wit and courage. The several shaman apprentices from different villages smiled as they glanced at each other. The sound of gulping came up one after another. The 1,000 people under Xianxia's lead gathered around the mountain of weapons, but no one was eager to scramble for them. Everyone stared at the stacked weapons with giddy faces, their eyes glowing as if they were not looking at cold weapons, but at naked beauties. "You guys go first." Ahu suddenly turned around and looked at the villagers of the other villages. As a warrior who came from the same village as Xianxia, Ahu felt that it was time to win some glory and establish prestige for Anyo. Therefore, he was not in a hurry to grab his weapon, but gave priority to the villagers of the other villages instead. The leaders of those villages exchanged looks at his words, and one of them smiled and shook his head as he replied, "These are the weapons brought by Sir Shaman Nyo. Blue South Village should go first. Please." "That's right, Ahu. You pick first." "Yes, Ahu. Don't refuse us." But Ahu shook his head. "It is precisely because Anyo obtained these things that I want you to pick first. These things are not just brought for Blue South Village, but for everyone." The leaders of the several villages burst into a quarrel with each other, because they did not give in to each other and were unwilling to pick first. At the same time, the surrounding ancient barbarians who were watching them secretly cursed in their hearts, feeling envious and helpless. All of a sudden, the oldest shaman apprentice remarked with a smile, "Let's not quarrel. Now that we are gathered together, there is no difference between this village and that village anymore. We are one now and are all under Shaman Nyo's command. Could be said we are now in the Shaman Nyo clan. It doesn't matter who comes first or who comes later. Moreover, there are so many weapons here, so there will still be a lot left even if each of you takes one. So, there's no need to be shy. The Shaman Nyo clan." Everyone's eyes lit up listening to his words, and started to ponder about it. The old shaman apprentice was right. Now that they had all gathered together, there was really no point to distinguish everyone by their original village. Only by truly combining into one whole could they unite in the upcoming war with a common will as strong as a fortress. If they deliberately distinguished themselves by their original villages, it would only allow selfishness to grow between them, and any disunity may result in death in the coming war. After a moment of pondering, Ahu nodded. "I agree with what Elder has said. In that case, let's pick together." The rest naturally had no objection and immediately rushed up to begin dividing up those weapons. When they found the weapon that was most suited for themselves, they took it out and moved back to allow others to choose their weapons. For a moment, the whole place was filled with the noise of a celebratory crowd. Laughter of contentment could be heard everywhere. The situation was lively yet not chaotic, as everyone moved in an orderly manner. The other shaman grandmasters took in the scene before their eyes, their expressions complex. Needless to say, envy and admiration were what they felt. Shaman Nyo easily united 1,000 people together with a simple giveaway of weapons, which was a method that was worth being commended upon. They took a look at the barbarian warriors in their groups, letting out a sigh, seeing that many were now gazing at these people in jealousy. It could not be helped though, as although such a method seemed to be simple, they had no way to mimic it because they did not have the financial resources that Shaman Nyo apparently did. On top of admiration, they felt a sense of crisis. The order of the Shaman King made it very clear that every Shaman Grandmaster had to win over 2,000 to 3,000 clansmen. Quite a number of people had completed the task after half a day, but there were still a few of them working hard towards it. There were also more scattered warriors and wandering heroes still waiting to decide who to follow. Originally, everyone used their own means in recruiting under fair competition, but now, with what Shaman Nyo had done, he instantly gained the absolute upper hand over the other Shaman Grandmasters, throwing them far behind him. Perhaps more clansmen would be willing to join them after the 1,000 people finished getting their share of weapons. What would they do if those powerful warriors were all drawn away by Shaman Nyo by then? Thinking of this, A few shaman grandmasters who were on good terms with each other gathered together and began to discuss countermeasures. After a stick of incense worth of time, the 1,000 barbarian warriors under Xianxia had chosen their own weapons. Looking proud and majestic, they held up high the axes, swords, and spears that were forged from refined metal. On the other hand, the archers also replaced their old weapons with new, powerful bows and arrows. The mountain of weapons that piled up in the place had only shrunk by a third of its original size, and there were still many more weapons waiting for their masters to choose them. Groups of barbarian warriors started to approach the mountain and stare at the weapons with covetous looks, all of them shooting glances towards Xianxia with desire-filled eyes. Xianxia smiled, snapped his fingers and announced, "The Shaman Yo clan is recruiting. Sir Shaman Yo, I am willing to join. I will join, of course I will join. I also want to join. Sir Shaman Yo, please accept me. I'm the most powerful warrior in our village." As soon as Xianxia's voice fell, the voices of countless people immediately overwhelmed the area. The situation was almost out of control. Fortunately, Ahu and the others drew out their new weapons in time and stopped the other ancient barbarians from flooding the place. Xianxia raised his hand and assured, "Don't rush and don't push. Sir Shaman King ordered us to gather up to 3,000 clansmen, and this Shaman Yo's goal is precisely 3,000 people. Therefore, many still have a chance. If anyone is interested in joining the Shaman Yo clan, please line up here and come forward to get your weapon. Once you have your weapon, you will be a clansman of my Shaman Yo clan." As soon as the words came out, everyone immediately quieted down and the ancient barbarians quickly formed a queue like a long, snaking dragon. 3,000 people? Shaman Yo, as a low-rank shaman grandmaster, how can you manage so many people? Your stomach might explode because of your big appetite. At the same time, a burly figure fell from the sky and landed beside the mountain of weapons with a bang. The huge impact caused the ground to tremble, sending dust flying, and the whole mountain of weapons clunked noisily. Xianxia glanced at the bundle of black hair on the man's chest, and responded with his brow raised, "Shaman Tu, what can I do for you?" Shaman Tu laughed, "I'm just worried for you because you're young and weak. Many thanks for your concern, but you don't need to worry for me." Shaman Tu shook his head. "How can you say that? We are all shaman grandmasters of the South Barbarian clan, and we should all help each other. Well, how about this? This shaman is a little stronger than you, so I should take up more responsibility. You can recruit another 1,000 people, and I will take care of the remaining 1,000 for you. In exchange for this shaman's kindness, just give this shaman the extra weapons." After saying so, without giving Xianxia a chance to respond, he reached out his hand directly towards the mountain of weapons. "Stop!" Ahu was furious. These weapons were purchased at a huge price by Anyo. Although he had no clue how Anyo obtained so many monster cores that could be used for trading, he could not stand idly by and watch someone steal Anyo's property. What a rotten shaman grandmaster. Whoever dares to rob our belongings is our enemy. While shouting angrily, Ahu swung his axe at Shaman Tuesday Scram. Shaman Tu roared without even turning his head around, immediately creating a visible wave made of compressed air around him. This wind wave obviously contained a massive amount of power because Ahu was sent flying into the sky like a paper kite as soon as he collided with it, crashing to the ground a moment later. At the same time, Shaman Tu grabbed a fine steel spear with his hand. With a slight grasping force, the whole mountain of weapons trembled, and almost half of the weapons flew in the air. It was obvious that he was taking the weapons back to his barbarian warriors. Seeing this, everyone in Shaman Tu's group was overjoyed and anticipated the arrival of these weapons. But just then, a figure suddenly appeared on top of the mountain of weapons out of thin air. It was not clear what he did, but the thousands of flying weapons dropped back onto the ground, as if pressed down by a mountain, and collided with each other in a loud clunk. Midair, Xianxia looked down at Shaman Tu with a teasing face. "Are you trying to rob me?" Shaman Tu's face turned red. "How is this robbing? Didn't you hear me clearly? I already said that everyone here is from the South Barbarian clan. This shaman just wants to share your burdens. This shaman is fine with your lack of gratitude, But Shaman Yo, how dare you spoil this shaman's reputation instead? He justified himself. Yang Kai sneered, I didn't allow you to share my burden. Shaman Tu shook his head. It doesn't matter whether you allow it or not. This shaman is always happy to help others, so move away now. Don't be someone who doesn't know how to appreciate kindness. Yang Kai was amazed. Shaman Tu, have you no shame? How can you tell such obvious lies with your eyes wide open? Don't you feel ashamed? Sure enough, Shaman Tu blushed in shame, but he continued to stand firm. Good, good, good. You're an arrogant little thing, aren't you? As a high-rank shaman grandmaster, I have the responsibility and obligation to teach you to recognize reality. As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his hand and moved his lips in an incantation, and his shaman strength fluctuated. Two visible chains of shaman strength wrapped themselves around Yang Kai, binding him tightly, seemingly catching him off guard. Shaman Tu could not help laughing and lectured. Remember, if you recognize reality now, you will only be a bit embarrassed. But if you can't see reality on the battlefield, you will lose your life. You don't need to thank me for this lesson. It is this shaman's responsibility to educate his juniors. When he spoke, he tightened his grip on his hand in an attempt to drag Yang Kai down from the air. But his face changed in the next moment as, despite his action, Yang Kai remained hovering over the mountain of weapons motionlessly, as if he was nailed there by some invisible force. Instead, Yang Kai just looked back at him with a grin. Shaman Tu felt a slight palpitation in his heart and instinctively thought, impossible. His opponent was just low-rank shaman grandmaster, who was 2 minor realms lower than him. Furthermore, Yang Kai was already bound by his spell, so how could his power be resisted? Shaman Tu could not believe it and immediately tried again, but to his utter shock, he found that it was still ineffective. It did not seem like he bound a low-rank shaman grandmaster, but a true mountain instead. His efforts were fruitless, and his face flushed in fury. Many onlookers were dazed too. They did not understand what happened to Shaman Tu, while some shaman grandmasters kept sending him eye signals to end this farce quickly. Previously, they were those shaman grandmasters who gathered to discuss possible countermeasures, and they thought that the best way was to create a situation to humiliate Shaman Yo. It was true Shaman Yo brought thousands of weapons here, which attracted the attention of many powerful barbarian warriors, arousing their interest in taking refuge with him. But this interest was only based on these weapons. The clansmen would probably change their mind about joining Shaman Yo if they witnessed his vulnerability through humiliation. Weapons were indeed tempting, but a weak shaman grandmaster was not worthy to be depended on, since that would be risking their lives. Everyone knew the barbarian race was about to face a bloody life and death war, so having a powerful shaman grandmaster as a leader gave them more security than possessing those weapons. That was why Shaman Tu jumped out to cause trouble and deliberately fought against Yang Kai. According to their previous plan, as long as they could crush Shaman Yo and humiliate him in front of everyone, he would lose his advantage. However, the situation now was somewhat different from what they discussed before. Shaman Yo has already been successfully entrapped by you, Shaman Tu. So, what are you still waiting for? Instantaneously, another high-rank shaman grandmaster flew down and also raised his hand to throw a chain-like shamanic spell to bind Yang Kai, shouting harshly, Shaman Yo, Shaman Tu was too kind-hearted to simply let you bow out in front of everyone, but this shaman is not as kind as him. Get down now. His hand tightened, but instead of Yang Kai, his body faltered and he almost fell to the ground. The high-rank shaman grandmaster's eyes almost popped out of their sockets as, at this moment, he realized that it was not Shaman Tu's intention to be merciful, but that he was really powerless to do anything. What happened? He looked up bewilderedly and saw that Yang Kai was grabbing their shamanic spell chains with his hands, grinning as he spoke. The scenery is splendorous up here. This shaman doesn't feel like getting down now. How about you come up instead? He abruptly yanked on the chains in his hands, and following 2 pitiful shouts, countless pairs of stunned eyes watched as Shaman Tu and the other shaman grandmaster were lifted off the ground and pulled towards Yang Kai involuntarily. Their limbs flailed helplessly mid-air, and they only managed to stabilize themselves after some effort. But soon their hearts sank again, because they saw that Shaman Nyo looked at them with a sinister smile, palming his fists with clear ill intention. Both of them forcibly took a breath and pushed their shaman strength together to condense shield spells before their bodies. Just as the radiance of their shield spells lit up though, Yang Kai swung his fists at them. The two punches flew at them like the wind. Following a crisp sound, the shield spells protecting the two high-rank shaman grandmasters shattered, unable to resist Yang Kai's seemingly effortless punches for even a moment. The two shaman grandmasters grunted and flew out like rag sacks, plummeting to the ground heavily with their faces stained with blood. The whole world fell silent at that moment as everyone looked at Yang Kai in shock, like they had encountered a ghost, especially the other shaman grandmasters. The corners of their mouths twitched, and their faces spasmed. They could not believe what they had just seen. It was natural for the barbarian warriors to be puzzled because they had not cultivated shaman strength before, and had no clue about the huge gap between a low-rank shaman grandmaster and a high-rank shaman grandmaster. Nevertheless, the shaman grandmasters present definitely knew about it. Under normal circumstances, a high-rank shaman grandmaster could crush a low-rank shaman grandmaster easily, as the gap of two minor realms was not there for nothing. But the scene that happened in front of them was so surreal that they could not find a suitable reason to explain it. The shield spells cast by the two shaman grandmasters were effortlessly broken by Shaman Nyo. If the shield spell they used was this weak, why would they work so hard to cultivate it? The fact was that the shield spells weren't weak, but Shaman Nyo was just too terrifyingly strong. Goosebumps raised all over the shaman grandmasters. Previously, they felt a little bitter about him gaining the upper hand in attracting people by bringing in thousands of weapons. Furthermore, some of them were even ready to find trouble with him just like Shaman 2 did, and were waiting for an opportunity to snatch some weapons from him. But now, who would dare to have such thoughts? If the two high-rank shaman grandmasters were no match for him even when they joined hands, who else could be his opponent? On the other side, the two shaman grandmasters who got beaten up were also lost in confusion. Shaman 2 took a huge effort to get himself up from the ground, shaking his head to try to clear it. He looked blankly at the eyes of the clansmen around him, and his face changed from pale to red. He immediately became infuriated out of shame and reprimanded, "How dare you launch a sneak attack against me?" He did not want to admit that he was no match for Yang Kai and felt that the defeat just now was due to a moment of neglect because he did not expect Yang Kai to really attack him. He believed that he would not be embarrassed in front of everyone if he was prepared. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. The reason he stepped out to teach Yang Kai a lesson was to take the opportunity to suppress him and raise his own prestige. But he did not expect to go for wool and come home shorn. Not only did his scheme not go as he planned, it completely backfired and he made a fool of himself instead. There was no way for him to give up in this situation because, if he retreated like this, his prestige would plunge and he wouldn't be able to recruit any more people. "Surround him for me," Shaman 2 roared. When the words fell, nearly 2,000 barbarians rushed out and scattered around, surrounding Yang Kai and the 1,000 under his lead. Seeing this, the other shaman grandmaster waved his hand silently, and his 1,500 men also gathered. For a moment, roughly 4,000 people moved at Shaman 2's command. Ahu and the others tensed up their muscles and held their weapons closely in their hands one after another. Other uninvolved barbarians saw this and immediately understood that the issue would not be solved easily this time, quickly stepping aside to make room for the two opposing sides. "You want to fight?" Yang Kai raised his eyebrows and grinned wildly. "Good!" When those words fell, he quickly chanted an incantation and waved his hands, causing a halo to immediately spread out, covering the 1,000 warriors on his side. These 1,000 ancient barbarians were suddenly coated in a red light, as if they were wrapped by a layer of blood-red fog. Moreover, crackling noises broke out from the bodies of Ahu and the others, their already tall frames rapidly enlarging while the animal skin clothes tightened on their bodies. Every pair of eyes turned scarlet, and each of them took on a fearless aura, one that said they would not hesitate to swing their weapons even if it was a shaman saint standing in front of them. The malevolent auras of the 1,000 barbarians could almost break through the clouds. Endless power poured out of their bodies as they clung to the weapons in their hands as if they had gained a new life. Everyone looked excited and widened their eyes in surprise, because it was unbelievable that they could possess such overwhelming power. Bloodlust spell. And it was a high-grade bloodlust spell. Although the eyes of these 1,000 barbarians were as red as blood and they appeared to be fearless and ferocious, they had not lost their minds. Such an effect was only possible with the highest quality bloodlust spell. Although general bloodlust spells could make a barbarian warrior stronger and dull their 5 basic senses to make them immune to pain and fatigue, it would also affect their minds to a certain extent. In severe cases, it might turn them crazy and damage their souls, leaving crippling side effects even after the bloodlust spell wore off. But the bloodlust spell cast by Shaman Yo was different. It should only be something a shaman king could achieve. Many shaman grandmasters were shocked by this scene. Such a bloodlust spell alone was enough to make them change their opinions of Shaman Yo, because this was an ability beyond their capability to perform. Especially when he cast his bloodlust spell on all 1,000 barbarians so calmly and casually, not leaving anyone out. How much control and power did he need to achieve this? Moreover, this seemed far from his limit. Was a fight really going to occur? It seemed the arrow was already released from the bow when the bloodlust spell was chanted. Nevertheless, things had not ended yet. After the bloodlust spell, Xianxia continued chanting, weaving his hands in a complex pattern. Following his actions, lights of different colors burst out one after another and wrapped around his men. Light body spell, stone armor spell, great strength spell. Layer after layer of light shrouded every warrior under Xianxia as an earthy yellow light, like a heavy layer of armor, was added onto the scarlet glow on the surface of their bodies. Other than that, a light breeze wrapped around their legs, increasing their swiftness and maneuverability, while the golden rays of light which symbolized the great strength spell enhanced their strength by a further 30%. The breath of these barbarian warriors grew heavier as their fighting spirits were fully unleashed. The roughly 4,000 who gathered around them were so frightened by their power that they could not help taking a few steps back, their faces filled with dread. There was no need to even fight, as everyone understood just by observing that each of these people in the Shaman Yo clan had the ability to fight against 2 people alone. The faces of Shaman 2 and the other Shaman Grandmaster turned dreadfully ugly. They thought that they could bring out their men to deter Shaman Yo, making him panic, but who knew that this guy would be so undaunted? Not only was he not intimidated, but immediately blessed his clansmen with a lot of auxiliary shamanic spells instead. At the moment, like the rest of the Shaman Grandmasters, the 2 Shaman Grandmasters facing off against Xianxia were immersed in deep shock. Even a shaman king could not afford to sprinkle so many large-scale shamanic spells one after another with solely his own strength on so many people. Shaman Yo was just a low-rank shaman grandmaster, so how did he have so much shaman strength in his body to spare? By now, all of them realized that they had greatly underestimated Shaman Yo. Just the storage of the shaman strength in his body was already far beyond that of an ordinary shaman grandmaster. What's more, he was just a low-rank shaman grandmaster now, so what would he be like if he were to break through to become a high-rank shaman grandmaster? Just when the 2 grandmasters were staring dumbstruck, Xianxia chanted an incantation again, and another light descended. As the light fell, the barbarians on Xianxia's side were stunned all of a sudden as the red light permeating from their bodies merged together. In the blink of an eye, the 1,000 troops seemed to have converged, no longer distinguished from each other. The overwhelming aura merged together and caused the ground to shake. Life chains. Shaman 2's face changed drastically. He could not help gulping nervously as he stared at Xianxia as if he was looking at a monster. Life Chains was a truly profound shamanic spell that only shaman grandmasters and above were qualified to cultivate. This shamanic spell could connect the vitality of the barbarian warriors together. Under the effect of life chains, the damage suffered by any individual would be spread out evenly to all those connected to them, so that the barbarian warriors could withstand far more damage than ordinarily. The entire ancient barbarian race relied mainly on this kind of shamanic spell in large-scale wars. However, although shaman grandmasters could learn and cultivate life chains, they often needed the assistance of other shamans to perform this shamanic spell. It would be fine if it was a small number of people, as the life chains cast by an ordinary high-rank shaman grandmaster could connect the vitality of 200 or so without trouble. But if the grandmaster had the assistance of several shaman masters, shaman warriors, and shaman apprentices, that coverage could expand several times or even more than 10 times over. The more assisting shamans, the better the effect. However, when Shaman Yo cast life chains just now, he had no assistance from anyone. Still, the light of his shamanic spell instantly shrouded all 1,000 barbarian warriors on his side, connecting their vitality and integrating their scattered lives into one. If those shaman grandmasters did not witness it with their own eyes, they would not believe that such a thing was possible. Only the life chains of a high-rank shaman king could link 1,000 lives together at once. The advantage of having several times the number of people vanished in an instant facing this terrifying group. Although Shaman 2 and the other Shaman Grandmaster could also cast life chains to connect the vitality of their warriors, it naturally required some preparation time. After all, they needed to coordinate and cooperate with all the shamans under their command to do this. How could they easily cast a life chain spell like Xianxia just did? In other words, if they were really going to fight, the 1,000 warriors under Xianxia's command would certainly be enough to crush 10,000 scattered barbarian warriors without taking any serious damage. This shaman is ready. When are we going to start the battle? Xianxia looked down at Shaman 2 from above and asked nonchalantly, his indifferent appearance causing the other shaman grandmaster's brows to twitch. He did not look exhausted at all after casting so many large-scale shamanic spells. Was he a monster? Under normal circumstances, casting 2 or 3 of these large-scale shamanic spells would be enough to wear down the shaman strength of any shaman grandmaster. Was there still a point of fighting against such an enemy? On the other hand, was it even worth fighting now? The other shamanic spells still made sense because they did not have much backlash on the warriors, but the bloodlust spell was different. Once it was used, it would consume the blood chi of the barbarian warriors and they would grow weak for several days after the effects wore off. It was insane that Shaman Yo applied the bloodlust spell to his warriors without any hesitation. Did he not know the consequences this would bring? In front of Xianxia's overbearing manner, Shaman 2's face turned red, and he could not say a single word. Could he really start a battle now? He did not intend to really start a war with Xianxia in the first place, as his goal was to intimidate him by calling out his clansmen. However, he did not expect that this scrawny shaman would be so wild and short-tempered. Shaman 2 deeply regretted putting himself in this situation that was difficult for him to back down from now. Oh! Xianxia sneered at Shaman 2. By the look of Sir Shaman 2's face, it seems that he is not ready yet. Do you want me to give you a few days to prepare? Shaman 2's face flushed as he straightened his neck and shouted, Shaman Yo, don't be too arrogant. This is King City, and this shaman does not wish to disturb Sir Shaman King with a trivial squabble now. If we provoke Sir Shaman King, no one will have a good end. It's not that I'm afraid of you. As soon as these words reached the crowd's ears, various looks etched on many shaman grandmasters' faces. Everyone understood the situation. Shaman 2 knew that he had no chance of winning, so he could only use his tongue to save his pride. However, Shaman 2 had probably lost all his dignity after such a fuss, and it was meaningless for him to say more. It would also be impossible for him to recruit any more clansmen. On the contrary, Shaman Yo, who had the record of sending 2 shaman grandmasters flying on his own, as well as the ability to cast so many powerful shamanic spells by himself, certainly attracted the interest of those scattered warriors. Fortunately, the order of Sir Shaman King was that every shaman grandmaster should recruit 2,000 to 3,000 people. Otherwise, if he was allowed to take advantage of the situation, this Shaman Yo would definitely attempt to recruit tens of thousands of people. Once that happened, many shaman grandmasters would be unable to complete this task. So what Sir Shaman 2 wants to say is now is not the time to fight? Xianxia smiled lightly and replied with a disappointed look. What a waste of my long preparations. Shaman 2 snorted coldly. We are all from the southern barbarian clan. What's the point of fighting amongst ourselves? If you want to fight, go fight with the demon race to see who can kill more demons by then. Xianxia touched his chin and nodded. What Sir Shaman 2 said makes sense too. Shaman 2's expression relaxed. You think so too? Yang Kai smiled faintly. In that case, let's compete on the battlefield. Good. It's a deal. This shaman will not lose to you. Shaman 2 waved his hand and accepted the challenge. At the same time, his 2,000 men let out a sigh of relief and dispersed. Shaman 2 turned around and a breeze swept past him. Only then did he realize that his back was drenched in cold sweat. He could not help shivering and secretly scolded himself for being so stupid and putting himself in such an embarrassing position. On the other side, Yang Kai performed various hand seals and dispersed the life chains and bloodlust spell. To the surprise of Ah Hu and the others, they did not feel dizzy like normal when the bloodlust spell was removed. Although they were more or less tired, it was still within an acceptable limit. Moreover, such a small drawback was nothing to the strong barbarian warriors who could easily recover after a good meal. Not only did Shaman 2's provocation fail to achieve the desired effect, it even helped Yang Kai build his own prestige. Now, everyone knew that although this shaman grandmaster named Nyo looked thin and weak, his strength was unfathomable. If anyone could follow such a shaman grandmaster, their future would be safer and more promising than the others. Furthermore, anyone who joined him could obtain a fine weapon too. Who would not be moved under such conditions? Therefore, after Shaman 2 left, Yang Kai's recruitment progressed extremely well. Within one stick of incense, another 2,000 people had joined his ranks and had weapons divided amongst them. Yang Kai did not just accept any newcomers though. He mainly took in whole villages, with the village being between 200 to 300 people. 2,000 people wound up being equivalent to 8 or 9 villages. 99% of these people were barbarian warriors and spirit archers, with the rest being shamans of varying strength. Taya recorded the statistics for the 2,000 new recruits and then reported to Yang Kai. In addition to the shamans who had followed Yang Kai to King City before, he now had 13 shamans under his command, among which were 4 shaman warriors and 9 shaman apprentices. There were no shaman masters, but Yang Kai could not do anything about it. Shamans were rare in the first place, and it was even more difficult for places like villages to raise a shaman master. Only some small clans and major cities with thousands of people would have shaman masters. But this was not a big problem for Yang Kai, because he still had Taya with him. Other shaman grandmasters had shaman masters under them, but Yang Kai had a shaman grandmaster. Furthermore, Taya was no ordinary shaman grandmaster. She had been taught by Senior Qing for many years and had mastered a lot more shamanic spells compared to ordinary shaman grandmasters. Once the war began, the two of them could work together and would be enough to cover the 3,000 people with their shamanic spells. Next, Yang Kai personally divided the 3,000 people into 10 small groups, ranging from 250 to 300 people in each group. Then, he assigned the most powerful warriors and archers as the captain and vice-captain of each group. He also picked 100 elites out of the 3,000 people to serve as an elite guards. It did not mean that Yang Kai needed elite guards, as, with his current strength, why would he need others to protect him? Instead, the task of these elite guards was to protect the 13 shamans other than him and Taya. These shamans were just shaman warriors and shaman apprentices, and it was true that they could not play a huge role when fighting alone. However, when it came to small and medium-scale battles, they would become the core of the 10 groups. Any death among them would definitely be a huge loss. Therefore, Yang Kai had to make plans for their safety. The 3,000 people were made aware of the group allocation swiftly, and each group was managed by its own captain and vice-captain, with these captains and vice-captains answering directly to Yang Kai. With this method, it was much more efficient than him giving orders to the 3,000 people himself. The shaman grandmasters observed Yang Kai's way of handling things and quickly realized the benefits of this kind of subdivision. As such, they also followed Yang Kai's example in managing their groups, and soon they became organized too. After Yang Kai demonstrated his abilities in front of the crowd, these 3,000 warriors were completely obedient to Yang Kai, as they believed that they truly followed the right person this time and might have gained the upper hand over other clansmen in the upcoming war. After passing down the order to the 3,000 people to train in getting familiar with the cooperation and formation of their groups, Yang Kai and Taya quietly left King City. "Where are we going now?" Taya questioned curiously, wondering why Yang Kai was dragging her with him. Yang Kai led the way without turning his head back and answered, When I was in King City, I saw some tamed barbarian beasts. Let's catch some too. Do you want to tame beasts? Taya looked at him in surprise. Senior Qing taught you the beast taming spell, right? Yang Kai looked back at her. Taya nodded gently. Yes, he did, but I haven't used it before, so I don't know if it has any effect. It's fine as long as you've learnt it. As for the effect, we'll know when we try later. After all, I haven't used it either. Yang Kai grinned. But, do you know where to find barbarian beasts? Just follow me. Those beasts in King City didn't just appear out of thin air. Since they can catch them, then we can do it too. Yang Kai flew forward as he spoke. He had inquired about a certain place before. There was a mountain range about half a day away from King City, where Yang Kai's targets for this trip lived. They set out at night, and by dawn, a mountain range appeared in front of the pair, like a giant dragon lying on the earth. After entering the mountains, they continued ahead without stopping. Half a day later, a fierce screech came from above. Yang Kai stopped, looked up through the scattered leaves, and saw a huge eagle-like barbarian beast swooping down from above into a mountain pass. When the barbarian beast flew up to the sky again, a giant python had been caught in its sharp claws. The giant python struggled wildly and coiled its body around the giant eagle's claws. The giant eagle lowered its head and pecked at the giant python's body, causing blood to rain down from the sky. The giant python struggled even more, causing the giant eagle to lose some of its steadiness, as if it would fall from the sky at any time. But soon, the giant eagle opened its beak, and a wind blade-like attack suddenly shot out from its mouth, cutting the giant python's body directly into several sections. Its internal organs turned into pulp, and its struggling body gradually stopped moving. The giant eagle let out a fierce screech again, turned around in midair, then flew towards a certain direction with its prey in its claws. Do you want to tame this kind of barbarian beast? Taya noticed Yang Kai's interested and motivated look, and immediately understood his intention. Of course we should tame barbarian beasts like this. Yang Kai chased after the giant eagle as he answered. Taya was speechless. She knew that Yang Kai was coming to catch barbarian beasts, but she did not expect that he was looking for flying barbarian beasts. This type of creature was much harder to catch than the ordinary barbarian beasts, and it seemed that the cultivation of the giant eagle was not low given its size and aura. She was afraid that her beast-taming spell might not work on it. Despite the uneasy feeling, Taya did not say much but followed Yang Kai obediently. After a stick of incense worth of time, the pair came to a certain mountain valley which was surrounded by high cliffs, precipices, and jagged rocks. On the cliff were countless giant nests nestled between the rocks, each with a giant eagle standing proudly above it, like kings overlooking their territory. More giant eagles soared through the air, with some leaving to look for food, while some were returning from their hunt. So many! Taya was amazed by the scene. It's good to have more. Yang Kai grinned. To him, it was better to have more of them, but it only depended on whether the beast-taming spell was useful or not. If it was useless, everything was just empty talk. Wait here. I'll give it a try, Yang Kai said before disappearing from his original place with a flicker. Taya looked around with wide eyes, but she could not find any trace of Yang Kai, causing a look of shock to fill her pretty face. This was definitely not the effect of any shamanic spell that she knew. The more she stayed with Shaman Nyo, the more Taya discovered how mysterious he was. When she was looking around for Yang Kai, she suddenly sensed some abnormal movement on the opposite cliff, and sure enough, she found Yang Kai when she looked over. She had no idea when he got there, but at that moment, he had caught a giant eagle by its neck and was pressing it down into the nest while lying down on its belly to avoid being noticed by the other giant eagles. A faint light flashed and disappeared into the giant eagle's body. Taya clearly saw that the giant eagle suddenly stopped struggling, and a short moment later, it stood up again, spread its wings, and resumed its former aloof appearance, as if nothing had happened. He succeeded. Taya's eyes lit up. The beast-taming spell was an extremely oppressive shamanic spell, but not only did it consume a lot of shaman strength, it was also a shamanic spell like life chains that could only be mastered by those at the Shaman Grandmaster realm and above. The conditions to cast it were also extremely harsh. If one succeeded, he would leave a brand in the barbarian beast's body and be able to control its life. But if one failed, not only would the shaman grandmaster who performed the beast taming spell suffer from a harsh backlash, but the beast would also die instantly. Therefore, in general, if one wanted to cast the beast taming spell on a barbarian beast, it was better to capture it first and spend some time building a relationship with it to decrease its resistance to its new owner. This was the only way one could have some hope of success. Basically, taking such a forceful action like what Xianxia had done would almost always end in failure. But, contrary to the norm, he actually succeeded. Even after witnessing tremendous miracles that seemed to occur constantly around the shaman Yo, Taya was still dumbstruck. Was it just luck? She wondered. The next moment, the giant eagle subdued by Xianxia suddenly spread its wings and flew directly towards her side. After a while, when the giant eagle landed in front of her, Xianxia, who was hiding in its feathers, popped his head out and remarked, "I have a good idea and I need you to cooperate." Taya asked in a daze. "What idea?" Xianxia's eyes flashed. "I want to catch the Eagle King." Taya's whole face twitched. But after Xianxia explained his plan, she changed her mind and thought that it was indeed a good idea too. After forcibly subduing a giant eagle with the beast taming spell, Xianxia was vaguely aware of the thoughts of this giant eagle. From it, Xianxia learnt that there was an Eagle King in this place. The Eagle King was stronger than all the other giant eagles, and they had to submit to it. If they could dive straight into the enemy's lair and subdue the Eagle King, they could take away the numerous giant eagles here at their convenience. It was a drastic measure to deal with the situation, but much more efficient than Xianxia's previous plan to ambush and subdue giant eagles one by one. The two discussed for a moment and soon finalized their plan. Then, the giant eagle flew up again, with Xianxia and Taya hiding on its back. The back of this barbarian beast was spacious enough for them to sit side by side easily without falling, and under the cover of its long feathers, Xianxia and Taya became all but invisible. In a gigantic eagle's nest, the Eagle King was locked in place by Xianxia's shamanic spell. Xianxia directed gleaming beast taming spells from his hand to envelop the Eagle King again and again, but to no avail. The Eagle King screeched endlessly with its scarlet eyes filled with unyielding spirit. Around the eagle's nest, up to 100 giant eagles constantly rushed towards them fearlessly in order to rescue their king. Taya was hovering midair as she pushed her shaman strength, wrapping the whole eagle nest in a shield spell, cutting off all the incoming giant eagles and rendering their wind blades useless. Xianxia and Taya had gone straight into the Eagle King's nest where Xianxia bound the Eagle King before attempting to cast the beast-taming spell on it. But before he could even make a first try, it had already let out a fierce screech, which had alarmed the surrounding giant eagles, all of which rushed here together. If not for Taya's timely defense, Xianxia would not have had time to deal with the Eagle King. The realms of these giant eagles weren't low, but they weren't high either. If Taya wanted to be cruel, she could slaughter all of them all in an instant. However, the purpose of Xianxia coming here this time was not for a massacre, but to subdue these barbarian beasts. Therefore, Taya could only block the giant eagles from interfering and dared not hurt them. Because of this, she could not truly unleash her full power as a shaman grandmaster and could only remain passive in the situation. "Anyo, hurry up. I can't hold on for too long." Sweat beaded on Taya's forehead, as defending against the tremendous giant eagle's charge attacks and wind blades for such a long time was exhausting her. "I'm trying," Xianxia responded as he sent another gleaming beast taming spell into the Eagle King's body, only for it to fail again. Still, he had caused great damage to the Eagle King after his continuous attempts, as the beast taming spell was an extremely oppressive shamanic spell. Although the shamanic spell failed to achieve its effect due to the unyielding spirit of the Eagle King, blood was leaking from all its orifices as a result of the backlash. Fortunately, the Eagle King was much stronger than the other giant eagles. Otherwise, it would already be dead. However, by the looks of it, it would not be able to hold on much longer. Eagles were the proud beasts that ruled the sky and who would suffer no restraint to their freedom. Staring coldly at the Eagle King's red eyes, Xianxia warned, "You should be able to understand what I'm saying, but even if you can't, you should know what I mean." You have only two choices. Surrender or die. I don't have much time to play with you, and you don't have many chances left. Decide wisely." When the words fell, another beast taming spell was released. But this time, the light of beast taming spell failed to even enter the Eagle King's body and was directly rebounded by its will. Xianxia cursed with a ferocious look on his face when suddenly, a realization dawned on him. With a lift of his hand, a moon blade materialized and struck one of the giant eagles outside the shield, accurately cutting its body in half. With its shrill screeching suddenly ceasing, the blood and viscera of that giant eagle rained down from the air as its two halves fell into the deep mountain stream. Taya turned around and glanced at Xianxia in shock, having no idea why he had acted so crazily. Xianxia stared at the Eagle King and threatened it with a grin. "Every time you reject me, I'll kill one of your companions. Let's see how many times you dare refuse." While speaking, he performed the beast taming spell again. This time, the light of the beast taming spell did not rebound, but it was obvious that the Eagle King was still resisting and unwilling to cooperate with him. Without hesitation, Xianxia raised his hand again, and another giant eagle was cut in half and fell from the air. 53. The Eagle King cried, infuriated. If it was not bound by Xianxia's shamanic spell, it probably would have charged at him right now and fought him to the death. Instead of being offended, though, Xianxia was delighted, nodding his head as he declared, "Excellent! I'm glad that you're angry. If you don't want them to die, submit to me." Beast taming methods could be traced back to ancient times and continued to be passed down even in modern times. In the Star Boundary there was even the renowned beast taming sect. This sect was famous for controlling monster beasts, and each of its disciples commanded several war beasts, allowing them to fight multiple opponents of the same realm all on their own. However, the method of beast taming used by that sect was extremely gentle, but was also very complex and time-consuming. Xianxia did not know the secret methods of the beast taming sect, but he believed that it was actually a derivative of the beast taming spell from ancient times. No matter how despicable and insidious the method was, it only served one purpose, which was to subdue the monster for their own use. Using such means was the only way to achieve this goal. With Xianxia's current strength, it would not be difficult for him to tame an Eagle King if he was given enough time, but the problem was that he did not have much time to waste. He had to hurry back to King City as soon as possible just in case there was a sudden outbreak of war. The Eagle King was too rebellious though, so he had no choice but to use some extreme measure. The Eagle King may not care about its own life as it would rather die than submit. However, as the ruler of its family, the inability to protect them was an even greater disgrace, one that was intolerable to any proud beast. Every time a giant eagle was killed by Xianxia, the Eagle King became more and more irritable, and the shamanic spell chains that bound it even deformed from its unceasing struggles. Xianxia remained emotionless after killing off 10 giant eagles in succession. Only then did the Eagle King abruptly stop its mad struggle and display a pleading look. Probably noticed that if it did not give in, Xianxia would kill its entire family. Xianxia observed its expression and understood that it was time to cast the beast taming spell again. This time, the light of beast taming spell neither rebounded nor was resisted, but instead easily broke through the Eagle King's defenses and directly branded itself into its body. Xianxia's body shook as he suddenly felt a connection established between himself and the Eagle King, one that allowed him to control its life or death at any time. The Eagle King, who had displayed unwavering arrogance, quickly became docile and lowered its noble head. "It's done." Xianxia grinned, patted the Eagle King's head, took out several healing spirit pills, and offered them to it. The Eagle King looked at these pills with almost human-like curiosity and after hesitating for a moment, swallowed them in one gulp. When the pills entered its stomach, the Eagle King immediately felt invigorated, all the lethargy caused by Xianxia's torture being removed. Xianxia tried to communicate with it, and the Eagle King immediately responded. The fearless giant eagles, that had been gathering around all the time without retreating despite Xianxia's killings, suddenly stopped attacking and just flapped their wings into the sky. Seeing this, Taya could not help letting out a sigh of relief as she looked back and asked, "Did you succeed?" Xianxia nodded, Only then did Taya remove her shield spell, looking a little pale. Take a rest. I'll deal with things from here. Yang Kai instructed her before he communicated with the Eagle King again for a while. Although the Eagle King's cultivation was not high enough for it to be able to assume human form, it already had a certain degree of sentience. Therefore, Yang Kai did not need to spend too much effort in communicating with it and requested it to order all the giant eagles to return to their nests. A moment later, all the giant eagles circling in the air returned to their nests. Then, Yang Kai led the Eagle King to visit the giant eagles one by one. If Yang Kai visited them alone, these giant eagles would certainly regard him as an enemy and launch an attack without any hesitation, but it would be different when he was accompanied by the Eagle King. Under the suppression of the Eagle King, none of the giant eagles dared to resist. They stood quietly in their own eagle nests as Yang Kai implanted the gleaming beast taming spell. The process went exceedingly smooth, and the procedure did not fail even once. After working for an hour, Yang Kai had finally subdued all the giant eagles present. Counting them carefully, he found that there were 76 of them in total, including the Eagle King. Yang Kai was overjoyed with the result. With this many giant eagles, he could carry out the vague plan he formed earlier. Taya had also fully recovered after an hour of meditation. The pair immediately rode the Eagle King and returned along the way which they came. Behind the Eagle King, 75 giant eagles flew in close formation, forming a huge shadow that shaded the entire vast land. The flying speed of the giant eagles was quite fast, not slower than the maximum speed of a shaman grandmaster while still remaining extremely stable in flight. Not the slightest airflow interference was experienced by Yang Kai, who was riding on the Eagle King's back. It took less than half a day for them to reach King City. From a distance, an uproar was heard from below, and some people exclaimed, "The barbarian beasts are attacking!" Many of the ancient barbarians, who had gathered from outlying villages, immediately responded. Spirit archers drew their bows one after another, aiming at the Eagle King who led the way, while some shaman grandmasters chanting incantations flew up in the air with the light of the shield spells covering their bodies as they moved towards the Eagle King. The distance between the two sides rapidly narrowed, and both overt and covert shaman strength fluctuations appeared from all directions one after another. Seeing an attack was about to occur, Yang Kai quickly stood up from the Eagle King's back and shouted, "Relax, relax!" Many of the ancient barbarians were astonished to see a man on the eagle's back, and the shaman grandmasters who came to meet them were even more flabbergasted. One of them wiped his eyes vigorously and questioned in shock, "Shaman Nyo, the battle between Yang Kai and Shaman Tu yesterday was quite unforgettable." Many shaman grandmasters had witnessed the whole process, and they were deeply impressed by this thin and weak-looking Shaman Nyo, so they readily recognized him. Among the crowd, Shaman Tu stepped out and asked in a daze, "Shaman Nyo, where did you get so many barbarian beasts?" Yang Kai smiled lightly, "I caught them." "C'est caught?" Their brows twitched at his reply. They would not be so astounded if these flying barbarian beasts were easy to catch. It was still understandable if Yang Kai was lucky to catch one giant eagle, but the number of these giant eagles was obviously one of an entire family. How did he manage to catch so many giant eagles in one go? Yang Kai stood on the eagle's back and asked in a booming voice, "This is the shaman's aerial cavalry. What do you think?" Aerial cavalry. The shaman grandmasters were not idiots, so although this was the first time they heard about the term aerial cavalry, they instantly understood Yang Kai's plan. The next moment, many people's eyes turned red in excitement as they gawked at those giant eagles with desire-filled eyes. A great war was coming, and if anyone could have such an aerial cavalry, they would definitely have the upper hand in gathering information of the enemy, not to mention other advantages. Above King City, the 75 giant eagles and the Eagle King were soaring high in the sky, their wings spread wide. On the back of each giant eagle sat an archer, who clung onto the feathers on the eagle's back with a pale face. Some even vomited up in the air, but they held on and did not give up. They were not shamans, and they had never experienced the thrill of being up so high, so they were not used to riding giant eagles in the sky. However, the ancient barbarian race was tough and had strong adaptability, so as long as they were given a few more days, they should be able to get used to this. This was Yang Kai's aerial cavalry, while Ah Hua, who was born in Blue South Village, was the aerial cavalry captain. Yang Kai did not appoint Ah Hua as the aerial cavalry captain out of bias. It was through the competition between the archers. All the archers of the barbarian race were spirit archers with excellent eyesight, able to hit a mosquito's wing from a kilometer away. Naturally, no one with such good abilities would want to live under others. When the aerial cavalry was established, every archer coveted the position of captain. Yang Kai did not say much and just let them compete in archery. Whoever was the best would be the aerial cavalry captain. The archers Yang Kai carefully selected went out for a competition, and when they returned, Ah Hua came back with a proud look on her face, while everyone else looked obedient. But at this moment, even Ah Hua, who was the aerial cavalry captain, also could not withstand such flight training. Every time she came down from the sky, she would be paralyzed on the ground for a long time before she regained her composure. Inside Yang Kai's camp was a newly built wooden house. It was exceptionally rudimentary but was still sufficient to shelter them from the wind and rain. At this moment, Yang Kai and Taya were cultivating inside. After slowly withdrawing his divine sense, Yang Kai lifted his head and commented, "Ah Hua and the others are improving really fast. They should be able to fight in 2 days." Taya opened her eyes and glanced at him. "I don't know what the demon race are like, but although the aerial cavalry can move fast, they are easy to spot. If the demon race has any long-range forces, I'm afraid this aerial cavalry won't be of any use." Yang Kai gave a small smile. Being able to investigate the enemy is their best use. At this time, the old shaman apprentice's voice suddenly came from outside the house. "Sir Shaman Yo." Before he could finish, Yang Kai shouted with his face darkened, "Ask them to go away. I won't see any of them." Since Yang Kai brought back 75 giant eagles and his eagle king 2 days ago, the other shaman grandmasters had come to visit him one after another with enthusiasm, as if they had been good friends with Yang Kai for many years. They even prepared some small gifts for Yang Kai as a courtesy when they came. Under normal circumstances, the gifts from a shaman grandmaster would not be common things. Nevertheless, Yang Kai was already immensely wealthy, so he had no interest in the gifts from these bumpkins. After all the fuss, these shaman grandmasters slowly revealed their purpose. They hoped that Yang Kai could share some giant eagles with them. Everyone could see that these giant eagles were useful in investigating the enemy, so everyone wished to obtain some from Yang Kai. Yang Kai naturally refused without showing the slightest politeness to their rude, shameless, and unreasonable demands. Yang Kai had subdued the 75 giant eagles one by one and formed a small-scale aerial cavalry, which was just sufficient for his own army. It was not like he had any extra to spare, so why should he share with them after working so hard to catch them? Despite being rejected, those shaman grandmasters did not give up easily. Some tried to reason with him, some tried to move him with sentiment, and some even tried to threaten him with force. Without exception, all of them were thrown out of the wooden house by Yang Kai, while those shaman grandmasters who intended to fight him had their faces bashed in. This resulted in Yang Kai's reputation turning extremely bad in the entire South Barbarian clan. All the shaman grandmasters knew that this guy was selfish, had a bad temper, and refused to listen to others. Even so, there were still many shaman grandmasters who visited him brazenly, hoping that Yang Kai would miraculously change his mind. So, as soon as he heard the call from the old shaman apprentice outside, Yang Kai thought that it was another fool who wanted him to give up a few giant eagles, and he was instantly annoyed. Instead of chit-chatting with them, it was better to spend time cultivating. Suddenly, another familiar voice came from outside the door. "Sir Shaman Yo, it is Sir Shaman King who summons you." Yang Kai was surprised and immediately got up to open the door. After seeing a familiar face, he could not help grinning. "It's you!" This guy was the shaman master messenger he met in Blue South Village before. Yang Kai did not know his name, but he remembered his honest face. The shaman master replied with a smile, "Yeah, it is this subordinate." Yang Kai's face turned solemn. "Sir Shaman King summoned me?" The messenger nodded. "Yes." Yang Kai answered, "Let's go then." On the way, Yang Kai asked the Shaman King messenger for the reason for his summon, but the messenger did not give him a clear answer. It was unknown whether he was hiding information or he really did not know anything about it. However, Yang Kai did not want to embarrass him, so he just chatted with him all the way, which flattered the messenger. In recent days, Shaman Yo's name had spread all over King City, and everyone knew that this thin and weak-looking shaman grandmaster was not someone to be trifled with. Within just a few days of coming to King City, this Shaman Yo had beaten 2 shaman grandmasters who were 2 minor realms stronger than him and had formed an aerial cavalry with the giant eagles as mounts. The 75 giant eagles hovered over King City from time to time, and lumps of their droppings would occasionally drop on the top of the people's heads, which attracted much hatred from the residents of King City towards Shaman Yo. They wished that they could just find him and punch him until not even his mother could recognize him anymore. The messenger was also a little nervous when he came, but after he met Yang Kai, he found that this guy was not as malicious as the rumors claimed him to be. Instead, he was quite amiable, which made him feel that the rumors were all wrong. They walked and talked all the way, and soon entered King City, where they met with 6th Shaman King Dang in the palace. "Greetings, sir." Yang Kai saluted with his hand on his chest. "May I know why sir summoned me? Is there anything urgent?" The guard captain who was standing nearby Shaman Dang eyed Yang Kai with a sharp glare, making Yang Kai feel like 2 blades were going to pierce into his mind and spy on the secrets he hid there. Yang Kai frowned and glanced back at him, thinking that this guy was a bit messed up in the head. This warrior would stare at him like this every time he came, as if Yang Kai would harm Shaman Dang at any time. Shaman Dang turned around and grinned. "Sit down and talk." "Many thanks, sir." Yang Kai retracted his gaze and accepted the invitation. After that, he took a seat. Shaman Dang continued kindly. "Actually, there's nothing urgent, but I've heard some interesting stories recently." "Oh." Yang Kai looked at him in surprise. Shaman Dang returned a smile. He thought that Yang Kai would have asked what interesting stories he had heard, but unexpectedly, he did not say much other than an "oh." Shaman Dang was left hanging, slightly embarrassed, so he could only cough lightly and press on. "I heard that you spent a lot to buy many weapons from the city to equip your soldiers?" Yang Kai immediately put on a painful expression. "Sir Shaman King, this subordinate has spent all his wealth selflessly for this war. The wealth that this subordinate has accumulated his whole life has been drained. This subordinate is loyal to our barbarian race, and the sun and the moon as well as heaven and earth can bear witness to my pure intentions. It's really hateful that those unscrupulous merchants are still charging me such a high price at this time, even 20 to 30% higher than usual. They are really the cancer of our barbarian race. Shame on them." He was so agitated that he spat his saliva everywhere as he spoke, revealing a look of grievance as if those shop owners were his enemies. The corner of Shaman Dang's mouth twitched slightly, and he could not help sweeping his eyes over Yang Kai for a while, not knowing how to carry on the conversation now. As a Shaman King, he had seen a lot, but it was his first time seeing such a reaction. He had only said a single sentence, but the other party already responded with many complaints. It was new for him to see Yang Kai being so talkative, which was interesting. Yang Kai suddenly turned solemn and whispered, "Did Sir Shaman King summon me to come here to punish those unscrupulous merchants? The barbarian race is in great danger now, but these profiteers not only didn't try to help, but instead raised their prices on us. They have to be punished severely. If Sir Shaman King gives the order, this subordinate is willing to testify against them and ensure that none of them can escape. We must punish all of them to put a stop to all the malpractices in the businesses of our South Barbarian clan." At this point, even the guard captain who had been standing there quietly could not stop his face from twitching slightly. The Shaman King Dang had no choice but to wave his hand. This king does not intend to do that. A deal is a deal. Moreover, you could have just rejected any unreasonable offers, so there's nothing wrong with those businessmen. "Oh." Yang Kai showed his disappointment, but soon his eyes lit up and continued, "Is Sir going to reimburse this subordinate for his expenses?" "What?" Shaman Dang was stunned. "Reimbursement?" Yang Kai looked at him seriously. "This subordinate has spent all his wealth and is penniless now. This subordinate cannot buy anything anymore even if it is needed. King City is rich, so is it possible? Impudence! The guard captain finally lost his temper and reprimanded angrily. How dare you talk nonsense in front of a shaman king? Yang returned a glance at him, then rolled his eyes, which truly boiled the guard captain's blood. Shaman Dang smiled helplessly. He realized that it was unrealistic to have small talk with Shaman Yo to bring them closer. Therefore, he could only go straight to the point. Shaman Yo, actually, I have something to tell you. Yang Kai sat up properly. You can say anything as long as it's not about things in the sky. Shaman Dang replied. It's exactly about things in the sky. Yang Kai immediately looked aggrieved. What? Even King City is aiming for my aerial cavalry? Sir Shaman King, what's wrong with all of you? He already felt suspicious before arriving here. After all, he just met Shaman Dang a few days ago. If there was going to be an immediate outbreak of war, he would not just summon Yang Kai alone. Therefore, the only thing that could attract a Shaman King's attention would be those giant eagles. Perhaps this trip would be more of a disaster than a blessing. As he thought, Shaman Dang summoned him because of the giant eagles. It was obvious that King City wanted to take a share from him too. Yang Kai and the other shaman grandmasters who wanted some giant eagles from him shared equal status. Therefore, Yang Kai could refuse them without hesitation, and even dared to beat them up if they persisted. But if King City requested them, Yang Kai would be stuck as he could not disobey his superior. That is too shameless. Sir, a few days ago, I noticed the presence of the aerial cavalry in King City. My giant eagles are barbarian beasts from the mountains that are not subject to domestication. I'm afraid that they can't be of any use. Shaman Dang smiled. There is indeed some aerial cavalry in King City, but not many of them. It is difficult to tame flying barbarian beasts, so this king was also quite surprised you were able to tame so many of them at once. Yang Kai immediately responded. I put in a lot of effort and spewed several liters of blood for it. I almost died there. Shaman Dang pressed on. That's why King City won't take your giant eagles for nothing. Yang Kai suddenly became interested, his eyes lighting up as he questioned. Then may this subordinate know how many giant eagles King City wants, and what price you are willing to pay for them. Since he could not reject King City, he could only try to minimize the loss. If King City wanted a few giant eagles, they had to show their sincerity. After all, Yang Kai's giant eagles did not just appear out of thin air. Shaman Dang answered with a solemn face. I wish for half. You may name your price. As soon as he made this remark, Yang Kai jumped up from his chair like a cat with its tail trampled on and furiously shouted, Half? Sir, why don't you just rob me? I might as well give you all the giant eagles. His sudden movement startled the guard captain, who immediately pulled out his weapon and stared at Yang Kai vigilantly. Shaman Dang reached out his hand and patted Yang Kai on the shoulder with a smile. Since you are so kind, then this king will accept it with much appreciation. Yang Kai looked at him dumbfounded, his face twitching. Sir, I have a question. Ask. Shaman Dang raised his eyebrows. Do you not have shame? Shaman Dang beamed. That's why this king asked you to name your price. Yang Kai was truly surprised that Shaman Dang did not care about his rudeness and immediately felt that this shaman king was an incredible character. Yang Kai fell silent for a while before continuing. 25 for you, while I keep 50 for myself. 50 should be still enough to change the tide in small-scale fights, so I can't have less than that. On the other hand, King City probably wants giant eagles for scouting and investigation rather than combat. Am I right? Without denying, Shaman Dang nodded. Indeed. Then that's fine. 25 giant eagles on top of the aerial cavalry owned by the King City are enough for such purposes. Shaman Dang wanted to negotiate, but Yang Kai stopped him. 25. This is my limit. Fine. 25 then. This king won't force you. Shaman Dang nodded readily, obviously having prepared himself from the start. He then looked up and asked, So, what is your price? Yang Kai immediately responded, Equip each of my subordinates with a set of battle armor. Shaman Dang only looked at him with a strange expression. Yang Kai scratched his face and continued, Fine, fine. 1,000 sets of battle armors shouldn't be too much, I assume? Shaman Dang shook his head. King City can't even take out 100 sets now, let alone 1,000 sets. Why is King City so poor? Yang Kai was taken aback. King City is not poor, Shaman Dang smiled helplessly. But the materials in the city have almost all been bought out by those shaman grandmasters. If you want to know why, you are the one who started it. You equipped 3,000 people with weapons all at once, so how could the other grandmasters not show some sincerity? Although they don't have huge financial resources like you, how many things are there in the city for them to grab even if each of them just purchased a little? Sounds reasonable. Yang nodded and believed that Shaman Dang was not deceiving him. It was true that many ancient barbarians had appeared with new weapons and battle armors outside the city during these few days. Obviously, they were bought by the shaman grandmasters themselves. But they could not fully equip all their clansmen, so they could only give priority to a small number of elites. Don't mention any more about materials. I don't have them to help you. Yang Kai thought for a moment and continued, if materials are out of the question, give me more manpower then. Shaman Dang narrowed his eyes. What kind of manpower do you want? Yang Kai grinned. My group lacks shaman masters. Could Sir appoint some shaman masters under me? How many? 5. Yang Kai smiled lightly. 5 giant eagles for each shaman master. It's a good deal, sir. 5 are too many. I can only give you 1 shaman master. What kind of shaman master is so valuable? Yang Kai was amazed. Sir, can you show some sincerity? Shaman Dang snorted coldly. Then do you think you're being sincere by asking for 5 shaman masters? Yang Kai replied frankly, everyone wants to gain the most in every deal. Business is just like this. 2 at most. That is this king's limit. If you don't accept, forget about it and leave. How can I not accept? Yang Kai hurriedly continued. 2 then. How can I reject Sir Shaman King? Shaman Dang pointed his finger at Yang Kai, wanting to rebuke him, but did not know how to start. After letting out a sigh, he turned to the guard captain and ordered, bring in Yu and Lu. The guard captain obviously was surprised by the order, but accepted it and went out without saying a word. After waiting for a while in the main hall, footsteps drew nearer to the door. Not long after, the guard captain led 2 young girls in. Yang Kai looked up, and his eyes lit up at the sight. Although he vaguely guessed that Yu and Lu were girls, he did not expect that these 2 would be so gorgeous. Compared with other ancient barbarians, they were exceptionally beautiful with tall and ideal feminine figures. The most important thing was the 2 girls looked exactly the same. They were clearly twins. Yang Kai was dumbstruck. The number of shamans in the ancient barbarian race had always been scarce, because only those who have been favored by the barbarian gods were able to cultivate shaman strength. It was already impressive to have 1 shaman apprentice in a small village. However, it was even rarer for twins to both be shamans. Moreover, they were shaman masters. By the look of their young appearances, they did not seem to be older than Taya by a lot, so they definitely had bright futures. Being stared at by Yang Kai, both of them revealed a cold look and did not bother to glance back at him, simply stepping forward and greeting in unison. Sir, did you summon us? Their voices sounded almost the same, and there were no differences in their intonation. If an uninformed person heard their voices, he would think they were from the same person. Heart resonance? Yang raised his brow and looked at them with his eyes blazing. Although twins could connect with each other relatively easily, heart resonance was a whole different matter. By reaching this state, the twins would double their efficiency in anything they did, and if they worked together to cast shamanic spells, the power they could display would far exceed their current realm. In other words, although Yu and Lu were just shaman masters, once they joined hands, an ordinary shaman grandmaster may not be able to contend with them. What a steal! Yang Kai was overjoyed to have picked up such a treasure. Initially, he just wanted 2 shaman masters to fill the gaps in his forces, but he did not expect that Shaman Dang would send such a pair of shaman masters to him. Shaman Dang nodded and looked at Yu and Lu with some tenderness and love flashing across his eyes. Yang Kai secretly felt that something was wrong, wondering if these 2 girls belonged to Shaman Dang. If so, He was worried that they would purposely give him trouble in the future after he took them under his wings. Just when he was worried, though, Shaman Dang announced, "From now on, you two will follow Shaman Yo. Listen to his orders, and don't disobey him." When Yu and Lu heard this, they turned their heads and glanced at Yang Kai, then saluted with their hands on the chest in unison. "Greetings, Shaman Yo." Their tone was flat, and it did not seem like these two shaman masters were showing much respect towards a shaman grandmaster. Yang Kai still posed like a senior expert though and nodded. "You don't need to be so polite." Shaman Dang smiled lightly. "You and Lu have been living and cultivating in the Shaman Divine Temple since they were young and only just returned to King City a few days ago, so they have not had much experience in the outside world yet. Since they follow you now, you can discipline them as you like. If they don't listen to your orders, you can punish them at will." The Shaman Divine Temple. Yang Kai's face turned solemn. The Shaman Divine Temple was a symbol of the entire ancient barbarian race. Inside, there was the statue of the shaman god, and only the most outstanding shamans of various clans were qualified to enter its doors to cultivate and serve the deities. In general, the shamans who came from the Shaman Divine Temple acquired exquisite shamanic spells and possessed superior strength. They were basically invincible in their own realm. Yang Kai inherited Senior Qing's knowledge, so he also knew how important the Shaman Divine Temple was to the ancient barbarian race. He used to think that if he had a chance, he would visit the Shaman Divine Temple to see whether he could learn something. Nevertheless, he had abandoned such thoughts because of the invasion of the demon race. But he did not expect that two shaman masters from the Shaman Divine Temple would be standing in front of him now. No wonder Yu and Lu had reached this realm of cultivation at such a young age. Since they could enter the Shaman Divine Temple, there was no doubt that Yu and Lu were shamans who had the highest aptitude in the whole South Barbarian clan. Shaman Dang continued with a smile. "With your aptitude, you can enter the Shaman Divine Temple too without any trouble. So, stay alive, Shaman Yo. The truly powerful shamanic spells can only be learnt in the Shaman Divine Temple. If you want to enjoy its greatness, you have to grow stronger and survive through the war." Yang Kai responded solemnly, "Yes, this subordinate will follow Sir's instructions." And dismissed. Shaman Dang waved his hand and spoke no more. Yang Kai held his fist to his chest before withdrawing. Before Yu and Lu left, they looked at Shaman Dang longingly and said in unison, "Take care, sir." Shaman Dang nodded gently. Then Yu and Lu turned around and walked out of the hall, leaving only Shaman Dang and the guard captain in the hall. "Sir, he's just a shaman grandmaster. Why did you give Yu and Lu to him?" The guard captain looked at Shaman Dang in bewilderment. He was obviously troubled by Shaman Dang's decision. Yang Kai only wanted two shaman masters, and although there were not many shaman masters in King City, there were still some left. Shaman Dang could have simply chosen two at random, but he actually gave Yu and Lu to Yang Kai instead. Shaman Yo had no idea about the relationship between Yu, Lu, and Sir Shaman King, but the guard captain knew of it. War was coming. How was it safer to entrust Yu and Lu to a shaman grandmaster than keeping them beside a shaman king? Shaman Dang replied indifferently, "They only have hope to live by following him." The guard captain frowned slightly and obviously did not agree with him, but he did not dare to express it in front of the shaman king, so he decided to be silent. Outside King City, Yang Kai was leading the twins to his camp when he turned back and asked, "Which one of you is Yu? And which one is Lu?" The two girls stopped, and the one on the left answered, "I'm Yu." The one on the right continued, "I'm Lu." Yang Kai grinned and nodded. "Noted. Good. Sir Shaman King mentioned that both of you have cultivated in the Shaman Divine Temple since young. Is it fun over there?" The twins frowned, and Yu replied in a deep voice, "The Shaman Divine Temple is the most important place for all barbarian clans. Only the most outstanding shamans are qualified to enter it and serve the shaman god. It's not a place for fun." Lu pressed on, "Mind your words, sir." Yang Kai shrugged his shoulders and roughly learnt the characters of these two young shaman masters. As such, he stopped talking and continued to lead the way. A short time later, the trio returned to Yang Kai's camp. where a group of barbarian warriors and shamans who were training were surprised to see him bringing back a pair of beautiful twins after his trip. Xianxia clapped his hands to attract everyone's attention, then announced loudly, "These two shaman masters are Yu and Lu. They were specially sent to our Shaman Yo clan by Sir Shaman King. Now that you all know them, I hope that you all can live with each other peacefully and work together to resist the demon race in the future." Everyone accepted in unison while a group of wilder men looked at the twins with intoxicated eyes. If it were not for the noble status of Yu and Lu, some would even be tempted to flirt with them. The shaman apprentices and shaman warriors came forward and greeted the two shaman masters with respect. Yu and Lu just nodded lightly as they swept their eyes across the people of the Shaman Yo clan to examine them. "Continue your training." Xianxia waved his hand to the crowd, then spoke to the twins. "You two, join them. The Shaman Divine Temple only taught you to cultivate shamanic spells, but I think they never taught you how to unleash your potential in battle, right? Get familiar with it in these few days, so that you won't panic when the fighting begins." The twins nodded. After that, Xianxia whistled loudly, and in the next moment, the Eagle King that was on the ground received his order and raised its head to let out a screech. The giant eagles of the aerial cavalry that were soaring in the sky responded one after another, and soon carried many archers back and landed on the ground. Many faces of the archers looked pale, and as they rolled down from the giant eagles' backs, some ran to the side to vomit. Some of them even lost their balance and fell flat on their butts. "Sir, what can I do for you?" Ahua came over bravely with a longbow hung over her back. Although her face was slightly pale, she was obviously much better than the others. At least, her footsteps were more stable than everyone else. Xianxia announced in a deep voice, "I just received an order from Sir Shaman King that I am to turn over 25 giant eagles to King City." Ahua was taken aback when she heard it. 25 giant eagles? Doesn't that mean... Originally, each of the 75 giant eagles was assigned an archer, so if 25 giant eagles had to be given away, that meant 25 archers would be removed from the aerial cavalry, which was unbearable for any archer. These archers were the elites of the Shaman Yo clan. They were the elite who were selected through various trials and were all almost equally proficient in their craft. Which is why I will give you a day. After a day, the 25 archers who have the worst performance will have to return to the ground force. Understand? Ahua pondered for a while, then nodded. Understood. Xianxia waved his hand. Go, I'll leave it to you. Yes. Ahua turned around in a complicated mood. As soon as she looked up, 75 pairs of eyes, full of fighting spirit, looked at her. Needless to say, everyone had clearly heard Xianxia's announcement, so if they wanted to keep their giant eagle, they had to perform better than the others today. Not long after, the 75 giant eagles took to the sky again, creating a spectacular scene. Xianxia returned to his wooden house, swallowed a monster beast core, and started to cultivate. A day later, Ahua came to report the situation of the aerial cavalry. After Xianxia's approval, she demoted 25 of the weaker archers and sent the spare giant eagles to King City. The following days were uneventful. The 12 units of Shaman Yo clan trained in an orderly manner, and over time, they had gotten more and more used to working with each other. With the addition of Yu and Lu, the shamanic spells that were cast by the shamans of Shaman Yo clan were enough to cover all 3,000 people, which had not been done before. Previously, they needed the help of Xianxia or Taya to achieve this feat, but with Yu and Lu, Xianxia and Taya did not need to intervene at all. The shamans discovered the strength of the twins, Yu and Lu, as they interacted with them more, and all of them were impressed by these two shaman masters who came from the Shaman Divine Temple. The shamanic spells the twins had mastered, their understanding of shamanic spells, and the speed with which they executed their spells were all incomparable to ordinary shamans. Under their guidance, the shaman warriors and shaman apprentices made rapid progress. Although the twins had indifferent personalities, they were not cold. In fact, if the shamans took the initiative to approach them, the twins were quite easy to interact with. Therefore, the shaman warriors and shaman apprentices had become familiar with them after a few days. They would approach them if they had any questions to ask, and the twins would teach them in detail without reservations. A few days later, the two shaman masters gained great prestige in the Shaman Nyo clan. Xianxia was so free that he just hid in the wooden house all day and cultivated. The benefits that a ninth-order monster core could bring him were not substantial anymore. Therefore, Xianxia began to consume 10th-order monster cores. In just 3 days, he had broken through a minor realm from low-rank to mid-rank Shaman Grandmaster realm. On this day, the peace was finally broken. When the dull horn sounded in King City, all the busy barbarians quieted down. Hundreds of thousands of eyes focused on King City, and everyone could sense a storm was approaching. Many rose to the sky and rushed to King City one after another. Soon, the Shaman Grandmasters arrived at the palace where they gathered previously. The number of Shaman Grandmasters this time was 50% higher than last. After all, many of them had been on the road to King City previously. But now, all the Shaman Grandmasters in the whole South Barbarian clan had gathered here. Basically, all the elites of every village were present now. When they arrived, they did not see Shaman Dang in the main hall, and naturally whispered in groups to discuss the development of the war. However, everyone was busy training their subordinates outside the King City recently, so no one had any relevant news and they had no idea what was happening outside. Therefore, their discussion was in vain too, and they could only wait for Shaman Dang to explain. A moment later, Shaman Dang came out with a grim face. The buzzing of the crowd ceased at once, and all eyes fixed on Shaman Dang. Seeing the Shaman King's expression, many immediately had an ominous premonition. Sure enough, Shaman Dang announced shocking news. The Shaman Saints ventured deep into the territory occupied by the demon race a few days ago and fought a battle with their leaders. All of them managed to return after that battle, but 3 of the sirs were seriously injured and have fallen into a deep slumber. Only Sir Xiong remains awake, but he won't be able to fight again anytime soon. After listening to the news, everyone was petrified with their jaws dropped, as if their mouths had been stuffed with an invisible fist and could not close, shocked beyond words. It was reasonable for them to react like this though, as in an era without a shaman god, Shaman Saints were the strongest masters. There were only 4 Shaman Saints in the entire ancient barbarian race. A few days ago, when Shaman Dang revealed that all 4 Shaman Saints had made a move, many still had a glimmer of hope that these 4 masters could drive out the demon race. But after hearing the shocking news today, everyone understood that the demon race was strong. Despite the combined force of 4 Shaman Saints, 3 of them were seriously injured and fell into an unconscious state to recover, while only 1 remained awake but was also powerless to fight. Given the outcome of the 4 Shaman Saints, it was obvious that the demon race did not lack existences on par with Shaman Saints. If even the Shaman Saints were no match for them, what could they do even if they had greater numbers? In that instant, the color was drained from their faces. Shaman Dang looked around and continued in a loud voice, but the efforts of the Shaman Saints were not in vain. According to the information provided by Sir Xiong, the strongest masters of the demon race are also either dead or seriously injured. So, we were not the only ones who suffered this time. Hearing what he said, everyone immediately let out a sigh of relief. This was the result that they were looking forward to, given that the 4 Shaman Saints had already taken action personally. The Shaman Saints need to rest and recuperate, while the same is true of the masters of the demon race. At this critical moment, the final outcome of the war will be decided by our hands. If we can take this opportunity to kill all the other demons, we can protect our barbarian race. But if we fail, the world will sink into the abyss. Therefore, we have only one choice: to fight to the death. Fight to the death. Fight to the death. In the hall, the Shaman Grandmasters shouted together, their blood boiling in excitement. Shaman Dang was satisfied with their reaction and pressed his hand down to calm them. The efforts of the Shaman Saints have slowed the invasion of the demon race. Now, they seem to be building a defense line based on the 4 territories that they had conquered. Our task is to retake these 4 territories while eliminating all their footholds. Sir, what exactly is our plan? Someone asked. Shaman Dang answered, take a look at this. While speaking, he waved his large hand, and as his shaman strength fluctuated, a huge map was condensed above the hall. On the map, there was a large blood-shaded area, which everyone frowned at. This area was clearly the 4 territories that were occupied by the demons. Outside King City, horns blasted again and again as one group after another moved step by step, heading north, towards the warfront. There were 3,000 people in the Shaman Yo clan formed into 10 regular units, an aerial cavalry, and an elite guard, but not one person was making any extraneous noise. At the front of the team, the 2 shaman masters from the Shaman Divine Temple, 4 shaman warriors and 9 shaman apprentices looked up. Yang Kai sat on his Eagle King's back like a true commander, and swept his sharp eyes across the formation. Every clansman held their chest up and showed their bravest side. Without much to say, Yang Kai simply waved his hand and ordered, "Depart!" Following the screeches of the giant eagles, the aerial cavalry took the lead and soared into the sky. Led by Yu and Lu, the shaman warriors and shaman apprentices joined hands to perform a large-scale light body spell. As the light descended, they blessed the group of 3,000 people, making their bodies feel lighter. The Shaman Yo clan rumbled off from King City at a great speed, and although there were a large number of them, they maintained a disciplined formation. In the sky, sitting on the Eagle King's back, Yang Kai was meditating and cultivating, not wasting any time. The order given by Shaman Dang earlier in King City was very simple. Right now, the demon race was strengthening their fortifications and establishing a defense perimeter. It seemed that they wanted to delay for time so that the masters on their side could have enough time to recover. The barbarian race definitely would not sit idly by and watch though. Therefore, all the major clans had set out at this moment during the recovery time of the demon masters to retake the 4 occupied territories. On the side of the South Barbarian clan, about 150 groups each led by a shaman grandmaster would attack the demon race from the south, destroy their encampments, and force them to retreat. Then, the shaman kings of the major clans would lead the people to kill as many of the demon race as possible. This strategy for the early stages of the war were made to be very flexible. There was no special task for the groups under the shaman grandmasters. As long as they encounter the demon race, they could just act freely and kill all the demons. Yang Kai was satisfied with this strategy as his strength was still in urgent need of improvement. If he had been given a special assignment, he would definitely be far more occupied. As such, this situation was the best for him. If he could improve his strength to a certain extent before the climax of the war, he would certainly be able to shine brightly on this grand stage. After living in this ancient world for such a long time, Yang Kai had unconsciously put himself in the position of a real ancient barbarian, and he could no longer simply remain idle as a bystander after being involved in this war. The roughly 150 groups led by the shaman grandmasters departed from King City together, but over time, the groups dispersed to different destinations. At first, there were still some friendly troops that could be seen around the Shaman Yo clan, but after 10 days, not a single friendly troop was detected within the investigation range of the aerial cavalry. More than 100,000 people had been completely scattered on this vast land, and many ancient barbarians were rushing into the cruel war that would decide their life or death. 10 days later, Yang Kai, who was cultivating on the Eagle King's back, suddenly opened his eyes. A hua flew over on the back of her giant eagle, and when she approached, she stopped, skillfully stabilizing her body, and informed with a calm face, "Sir, there is a village up ahead. What did you find?" Yang Kai questioned. A hua shook her head. "Nothing." Yang Kai nodded and instructed, "We'll stop there to rest. I'm afraid it won't be this peaceful for long. Replenish yourselves and prepare for the coming battle." "Yes." Ahua received the order and the group continued to move. Sure enough, they arrived at a small village about an hour later. The scale of this village was larger than that of Blue South Village, but not by much, while most of the houses were built of wood and stone with a low wall protecting its perimeter. Immediately after entering the village, the ancient barbarians were delegated into different posts. Some were responsible for the security of the village, while others began to start fires to cook. Everything proceeded orderly. Although such a group had just been established not long ago, it already had the makings of a well-trained army. Yang Kai initially wanted to find a place to have a good rest, but he instantly felt uneasy when he entered the village. It felt like a pair of invisible eyes was staring at him. This feeling startled him, and he quietly released his divine sense to carefully investigate the situation of the village. To his surprise, though, he did not notice any abnormalities, and the feeling of being watched quickly disappeared. He shook his head and asked Taya, "Ask everyone to be careful. Something might happen." Taya looked at him in shock. "What did you find?" Yang Kai replied faintly, "It won't do any harm to be careful. This is already not a peaceful area." Taya nodded. Understood. After Taya passed down the order, the clansmen all became more vigilant. Not long after, the smell of cooked meat began to permeate the air. During the 10 days of marching, they basically only had one meal each day, and some of the barbarians could not bear it any longer. Therefore, at this moment, their stomachs could not help growling when they smelled the fragrant meat. Without waiting for the meat to be fully cooked, the clansmen began to split it and feast with satisfied looks on their faces. At this time, Yang Kai suddenly felt a heart palpitation, and under the perception of his divine sense, several dozen strange and concealed auras emerged in the village out of thin air. It was too late for him to investigate clearly what was going on, so he simply roared, "Enemy attack!" The people who were enjoying the meal were stunned at the call, but quickly reacted. They hurriedly put aside their food and took out their weapons, forming a defense perimeter. A dozen shamans also hurriedly pushed their shaman strength to get ready to attack at any time. In the next moment, accompanied by a weird hissing sound, strands of dark aura surfaced from underground, and the whole village was shrouded by it in the blink of an eye. The clansmen were surprised. No one knew what this was, but they instinctively readied themselves. Demon Chi. Yang Kai narrowed his eyes in shock. This was actually Demon Chi. Furthermore, it was a very pure ancient Demon Chi. Although he kept hearing about the invasion of the demon race before, Yang Kai also wondered whether the demon race in the ancient world was the same demon race that he knew of. However, he could not judge at all because he had not gotten in contact with them personally and did not receive much information about them yet. Only now, seeing the dark auras with his own eyes, did Yang Kai immediately understand that the so-called demon race was the same ancient demon race that he knew of. Back then, outside Maplewood City, when the ancient great demon revived and besieged the city with its ancient demon chi, many people were demonized by it and transformed into demons themselves. Even Yang Kai himself was contaminated. Fortunately, he was able to seal the ancient demon chi within his dantian thanks to the firmament tree. Otherwise, he would have lost his mind to its corruption. This ancient demon chi had the ability to invade the body, and anyone contaminated with it was at risk of transforming into a half-human half-demon that could be enslaved by the demon race. Given that such a deserted village could hide so much of this demon chi, it was obviously a trap. Moreover, what surprised Yang Kai even more was that the ancient demon chi was hidden so deeply that he could not detect it even with his divine sense. It definitely did not appear out of thin air, and even if it was hidden underground, someone must have activated it. As such, Yang Kai was very concerned about the several dozen strange auras that he felt just now. As soon as Yang Kai investigated with his divine sense, he immediately found a clue. There were many bulges on the ground concealed by the ancient demon chi, and those strange auras were being released from these bulges. These bulges emerged abruptly and silently. After swelling to a certain extent, they turned into figures made out of sand, with complete facial features, but the skin was dry like soil. An indescribable ancient demon chi was exuding from all over their bodies. These were real demons. The sudden change made the group of 3,000 people panic. No one had ever experienced such a thing before, where they could not see their own hands in the black shroud, and there seemed to be some other things hidden in the darkness as well that could evoke wicked thoughts in their minds and urge them to take action to kill everything in front of them. Shamanic spells lit up one after another in the dark, like beacons that were guiding the 3,000 people to the light. The light on Yang Kai's body was particularly dazzling and directly spread out over a 5 kilometers radius, preventing the invasion of the demon chi. Solidify! Purify! Yang Kai shouted and took the lead in waving his hands, shrouding the surroundings with circles of milky white light. The dozen shamans, whose brains had gone black after being caught up in this sudden incident, immediately came back to their senses and followed Yang Kai's lead to perform the 2 shamanic spells. Under this situation, the standard of every shaman could be seen clearly. The light of the shamanic spell cast by Xianxia covered the entire village, and even some of the surroundings, while the light cast by Taya could only cover half of the village. Yu and Lu were almost the same as Taya with their combined force, while the remaining dozen shaman warriors and shaman apprentices appeared deficient in comparison. The weakest shaman could only light an area of several tens of meters around himself. Hissing sounds rang out. With the blooming light of shamanic spells, the darkness that shrouded the world seemed to have encountered its nemesis. Many large areas of the darkness dissipated into nothingness as the rich darkness receded at a visible speed. The invading ancient demon Qi immediately tried to swim away in an attempt to escape like a living creature, but it was still unable to escape from the light of the shamanic spells. The situation had turned favorable, but Xianxia was still feeling chills. The ancient barbarian race did not know much about demon Qi, but Xianxia had experienced it once in person. He knew the terror and strength of this demon Qi. Except for the dozen shamans who timely pushed their shamanic spells, the rest of his 3,000 subordinates were basically contaminated by the demon Qi just now. Once contaminated by demon Qi, it would be inevitable for them to turn into demons. At that time, they would not be able to recognize anybody, becoming bloodthirsty and ferocious. Just as he thought about this, a shrill scream filled the air, and as Xianxia followed the sound to perceive the situation, his heart sank. Somewhere not far away, a clansman was already demonified. He slashed the weapon in his hand fiercely at another clansman, who was a close brother in the past, chopping off his head mercilessly. Those who saw this wondered in worry. How can this be? We have just set out, and we are already about to get wiped out. Screams reverberated, terrifying all the ancient barbarians. No one had a clue of the surrounding situation, and could only huddle back-to-back in groups while also remaining wary of one another. The demonified clansman did not stop after murdering his companion, and once again raised his sharp weapon in his hand to slash at a new target. Xianxia lifted his hand and a chain spell shot towards the clansman, binding him tightly. More screams rang out as others encountered attacks from their once trusted companions. Xianxia's divine sense enveloped the entire village while he sent out one chain spell after another to constrain the demonified clansman. After a short delay, Xianxia suddenly found that the situation was much better than he expected. The 3,000 warriors of the Shaman Yo clan were not annihilated. After a rough count, only about 100 people had been demonized, while the remaining warriors did not seem to have been affected, still maintaining their consciousness. However, the omnipresent ancient demon Qi surrounding them was still constantly trying to invade their bodies, and it was only a matter of time before the entire army would be annihilated if the situation wasn't reversed. At this point, Xianxia did not dare to delay anymore and cast a large-scale purification spell repeatedly. After each spell cast, the surrounding ancient demon Qi would become less dense. The rest of the shamans were recklessly spending their shaman strength as well to cast their own shamanic spells. The shamanic spells displayed by these shamans seemed to be the nemesis of the ancient demon Qi, and after only 10 breaths of time, the darkness that enveloped the world had disappeared, replaced by warm sunlight again. Many clansmen were only able to have a clear view of the situation around them at this moment. Several dozens of their companions had perished on the spot, their blood still flowing down in streams, while many others who were bound by the chain spells struggled incessantly with inky black. Their tireless horrifying growls made them seem like they had lost their sanity. The scene shocked everyone, while on the other side, the several dozen strange existences that emerged from the ground had finally taken shape into sand demons. Each of these sand demons prepared themselves, and monstrous demon Qi swept out of their bodies, whizzing into the wind. All of them started to advance swiftly towards the surrounding barbarians. Although they had no idea what those sand demons were, since they had initiated an attack, they were enemies. The barbarian warriors roared, raised their weapons high, and launched into a brave charge. With a loud screech, the aerial cavalry lifted off and soared over the village, shooting sharp and precise arrows one after another. On the other side, led by Yu and Lu, more than a dozen shamans chanted incantations continuously while shamanic spells were launched in brilliant and colorful light. The battle started suddenly and ended just as quickly. The several dozen sand demons successfully launched a wave of sneak attacks with the help of the Shroud of Ancient Demon Chi, but apart from causing some disruption in the Shaman Yo clan and killing some people at the beginning, the following fight was a complete crushing defeat for them. Not a single clansman died. Only a dozen people were slightly injured, while the several dozen sand demons were all killed. The fierce battle ended, but at the sight of the tragic deaths and demonized companions around them, the barbarian warriors looked gloomy, without the slightest sense of victory. This was the first battle the Shaman Yo clan had since the day they set off from King City, and the opponents were only a few dozen sand demons, but even so, they had suffered unacceptable casualties. The ancient barbarians were all ashamed of the outcome. "Ahu, come here." Yang Kai beckoned with a solemn expression. Ahu responded, and came to Yang Kai in a few steps, quickly asking, "What are Sir's orders?" Although the two of them came from the same village and they were friends even before partners in arms, Yang Kai was now the commander of their army, and Ahu could not address him casually in front of others. The commander needed to have the majesty of a commander. "How do you feel?" Yang Kai asked as he reached out for Ahu's wrist and pushed his shaman strength to examine his body carefully. Ahu fell silent for a moment but soon confessed, "I don't feel well." Yang Kai was shocked. "Where do you feel unwell?" Ahu turned his head aside and lamented. "If I had been more careful just now, we could have lost fewer people." Yang Kai breathed a sigh of relief and patted him on the shoulder in comfort. "You don't have to blame yourself for this matter. Everyone is responsible for what happened." Yang Kai dismissed Ahu but remained a little dazed. He realized, after examination, there was not the slightest abnormality in Ahu, and there was no trace of demonization in him at all. The demon chi had blanketed the entire village, and it would be reasonable if all 3,000 people were contaminated. In disbelief, he summoned a few other clansmen and examined them, only to find that they were all in good condition, just like Ahu, which confused Yang Kai. It was a good thing that the clansmen were not demonized by the demon chi, but Yang Kai could not understand why. If all the clansmen were the same, it would still make some sense, but there were about 100 of them who had been demonized. As he was pondering, Yang Kai came to a subdued demonized clansman. The clansman seemed to have lost his mind at the moment and roared tirelessly with his inky black eyes. He was standing beside him, constantly casting purification spells, though it did not seem to have much effect. The other dozen shamans were also busy casting various shamanic spells on the other demonized clansmen, but nothing happened. "Sir, they can't be saved." Lu walked towards him from a short distance away, with a trace of grief in her eyes. Yang Kai did not answer, but scanned every demonized clansman with his divine sense before quickly discovering that each of them had something in common. These clansmen were somewhat weak compared to the other clansmen. Although ancient barbarians were all physically strong, there were naturally individual differences, and these demonized clansmen were basically those who had lower vitality compared to the rest. Obviously, their demonization was related to their own strength. Barbarian warriors did not cultivate shaman strength, only body tempering. The stronger their physique, the stronger their blood chi, while on the contrary, the weaker their physique, the weaker their blood chi. Blood chi, blood essence. Yang Kai muttered to himself before his eyes lit up at an idea. Walking straight to a demonized clansman, Yang Kai reached out his hand to tap on the clansman's forehead. Everyone was watching nervously, not knowing what Yang Kai was going to do. A moment later, the demonized clansman was covered in a red aura, after which their strength suddenly shot up and they became noticeably stronger. Bloodlust spell. Yu's and Lu's eyelids jumped. They looked at each other in shock. They did not even hear Yang Kai chanting to cast the bloodlust spell. In other words, this shaman Yo had reached a point where he could cast the bloodlust spell without an incantation. This was not something that just anyone could achieve. Only a few people who had deep and profound comprehension of certain shamanic spells could do this. This was something that even Yu and Lu, who were raised in the Shaman Divine Temple, could not do. Despite being shocked, they were also confused as to why Yang Kai had used the bloodlust spell now of all times. It was already difficult enough to keep the demonized clansmen under control, so the addition of the bloodlust spell was only going to turn the situation. Before they could finish their thoughts, the sisters, Yu and Lu, gaped at the clansman who had been subjected to bloodlust spell in amazement. As soon as the effects of the bloodlust spell were activated, a tinge of red appeared in the inky black eyes of the clansman. Although it was not very eye-catching, it was particularly obvious against the black background. The clansman who had been struggling and roaring constantly seemed to have been thrown into a daze for a moment and stopped resisting. Immediately afterwards, a painful groan tore from his throat, and a trace of consciousness reappeared in his eyes. He rolled his eyes to look around before finally locking onto Xianxia, immediately shouting with much suffering, "Sir, Shaman, Nyo?" Xianxia quickly motivated him solemnly. "You are a child of the barbarian gods. You are a warrior of the barbarian race, with strong physique and perseverance. I believe you can overcome the evil in your heart and regain yourself. Your brothers are waiting for you." The surrounding eyes fell on him. As if encouraged, the demonized clansman let out a low roar and the red light on his body grew more radiant. The crimson in his eyes burned like flames, and even the blackness in his eyes seemed to be melting quickly under the scorching flames. The next moment, a dark light suddenly gushed out from all the orifices of the clansman's head. This was obviously the ancient demon chi that had invaded his body that was now being forced out. Xianxia swiftly raised his hand to cast a purification spell, cleansing the ancient demon chi. After the ancient demon chi left his body, the clansman squeezed out a smile and immediately collapsed onto the ground. Several clansmen who were familiar with him quickly went up to examine him and quickly turned around to assure Xianxia, "He's not dead. He just fainted." Xianxia nodded. "He will be fine once he wakes up." He investigated the clansman's body with his divine sense and confirmed that the ancient demon chi inside had been completely eliminated. In other words, the hidden danger had been eliminated. "Sir, is the bloodlust spell able to counter the demon chi?" You looked at Xianxia curiously, with an insatiable desire for knowledge written all over her face. Xianxia instructed the clansman to bring over the other demonized companions while explaining calmly, "I don't know the specific situation myself, but I don't think it's the bloodlust spell that removed the demon chi. Instead, it's the stimulation of blood chi of our warriors. Our blood chi has the effect of resisting demon chi, and the stronger one's blood chi, the easier it is for us to resist the effects of the demon chi. Obviously, the reason Ahu and the others were still safe after being contaminated by the ancient demon chi was due to their strong physiques and blood chi. However, the 100 demonized people were the weakest ones among them. After Xianxia applied the bloodlust spell on them, their blood chi immediately increased by 2 to 3 times, which was enough to force the ancient demon chi out of their bodies. Previously, Xianxia only planned to give it a try, but he did not expect it to be so effective. Now, it seemed that he just needed to cast the bloodlust spell on the clansmen when the ancient demon chi came at them so that their blood chi strength would be stimulated and allow them to resist the corruption. The ancient barbarian race had too little an understanding of ancient demon chi, and thus had too little useful information about countering it. When the demon race invaded, the 4 clans were all destroyed without any survivors, so there was not much intelligence gained. Then, the 4 shaman saints went directly to confront the strongest masters of the demon race and had an equally matched battle with them. Before departing from King City, Shaman Dang also reminded all the shaman grandmasters to look for the weakness of the demon race during the war. At this moment, Xianxia felt that he had found a way to restrain the ancient demon chi. However, if they were blessed with bloodlust spell too many times too frequently, even the strongest clansmen could not avoid the fate of premature aging. But who would care about this at a critical moment of life and death? Thinking about it, Xianxia felt something was wrong. If the erosion of the ancient demon chi could be blocked purely by blood chi, it did not make sense that so many cultivators were demonized into demons when Maplewood City was besieged by the ancient demon chi. Although most cultivators in modern times did not pay much attention to body tempering, they still nourished their physiques with the world energy for years if not centuries. Thus their physical quality would not necessarily be worse than that of Ahu and the other ancient barbarians. However, they could not resist the ancient demon chi, and all those contaminated by it were demonized without exception, which was far worse than how Ahu and the others performed. Among Xianxia's 3,000 subordinates, only about 100 people failed to resist it. Is it because of the world principles? This was so long ago that the world principles between the two eras were completely different. Different masters would be produced under different world principles. Just like Yang Kai, who was an Emperor Realm master himself, but could not unleash his full strength after coming here. The barbarian race that lived in this ancient world may have cultivated something under the influence of the invisible but ubiquitous world principles that future cultivators did not possess, which allowed them to naturally resist the corruption of the ancient demon chi purely with their blood chi. The more Yang Kai thought about it, the more he thought it to be so. After Yang Kai's explanation, the dozen shamans came to a realization, and even Yu and Lu showed great respect to Yang Kai through their expressions for the first time. Both of them were the most qualified and outstanding shamans in the South Barbarian clan, and as long as they were given enough time, it was definitely not a dream for them to reach the realm of Shaman King. As the elites who came from the Shaman Divine Temple, they were exposed to the most powerful and profound shamanic spells available. Although Shaman Dang assigned them to Yang Kai, Yu and Lu never once thought that this Shaman Yo could be much stronger than them. All along, they only regarded Yang Kai as being their equal, and did not show any corresponding respect, because they felt that they would surpass this Shaman Yo sooner or later and reach a height beyond his reach. But after what just happened, they found that not all the powerful shamans had to come from the Shaman Divine Temple, and there were still some experts among the general masses. They were shocked by the fact that Yang Kai could cast the Bloodlust spell at will without an incantation, which neither of them could achieve even if they worked together. On top of that, he figured out a way to cure the demonized people in an extremely short time, which was by no means something an ordinary shaman could do. This required an exceptionally broad vision and profound knowledge as a foundation. Yang Kai's casual performance had gained the respect of the twin sisters. At the same time, by the instruction of Yang Kai, the other nearly 100 demonized clansmen were gathered in one place. All of their eyes had turned black, and although they were bound by shamanic spells, they still struggled madly. They roared wildly like beasts and bared their fangs to the clansmen before them, which terrified the others. As Yang Kai waved his hand, a bright red light enveloped these demonized clansmen, and a layer of light that resembled blood mist glowed from their bodies, slowly allowing a crimson glow to emerge in their pitch-black eyes. After stimulating their blood chi, some clansmen immediately regained their consciousness, but others required more time. The black ancient demon chi kept flowing out of their 7 orifices, and under the light of the purification spell cast together by the dozen shamans, that ancient demon chi was eliminated as soon as they appeared. While everyone was watching with relief, an accident occurred. A dull thud was heard as a demonized clansman's head exploded. A mass of red and white spurted out as this man's body collapsed. Everyone was taken aback, and even Yang Kai narrowed his eyes. Things had not ended yet, though. This accident was like a spark that set a prairie ablaze, with similar occurrences spreading rapidly. Following a few explosions, more than a dozen barbarian warriors collapsed to the ground one after another and died. Everyone could see clearly that before the death of these people, the red and black colors in their eyes constantly struggled with each other, as if the two were fighting internally over control of the body. When the conflict between these two colors reached a certain limit, the clansmen could no longer bear it. Fortunately, only about a dozen people among the 100 succumbed to this fate, while the rest were safe, simply passing out after the ancient demon chi in their bodies was expelled. After everything was settled, Yang Kai declared, "Remember, today's encounter is a disgrace to our Shaman Yo clan. The demon clan must pay for this 100 times over in the future." About 100 people in the army of 3,000 people died facing the sneak attack from that group of sand demons, and although it was mainly because of the lack of information, it was still unacceptable. All the clansmen clenched their fists quietly, their chests becoming tight. They glanced at their dead companions, suppressing the anger in their hearts. They needed to wait for the right time to let them out. After instructing the clansmen to take care of their comatose companions, Yang Kai beckoned, "Ahua, sir." Ahua stepped forward. "Send someone to inform the nearby allied forces of our encounter today, and let them learn from it." "Yes." Ahua received the order and immediately went to make arrangements. Although about 100 people in the Shaman Yo clan died today, it was not for naught. At least they learned that the sand demons had the trick of concealing themselves below ground and could appear out of nowhere. They also discovered a method to counter the ancient demon chi and cure demonified clansmen. This was crucial information which needed to be reported as soon as possible so it could reduce the losses for other groups under other shaman grandmasters. Sir, since this was a trap, we can't stay any longer. You came forward and whispered. Previously, there were only several dozen sand demons, but if they delayed any longer, who knew if there would be more demons coming? Xianxia nodded. Pass down the order. We will leave after a quarter of an hour of rest. A quarter of an hour later, the fully equipped Shaman Nyo clan continued to march towards the north. Just after everyone left, a bulge suddenly appeared in an open space in the middle of the village. The bulge slowly rose and turned into a dry-skinned sand demon. He looked in the direction Xianxia and the others had gone emotionlessly with his pitch-black eyes. Then, with a flicker, he sank into the ground and disappeared. Half a day later, in a deep mountain cave, the sand demon suddenly appeared out of nowhere. In the cave, a tall and slender woman with a short tail donning skimpy robes, exposing a large area of her snow-white skin, sat. This woman glanced over at the sand demon before she reached out and tapped his forehead. Black ancient demon chi gushed from the woman's body and turned into a visible beam, wrapping around the sand demon. The sand demon immediately seemed to have suffered inhuman torture, and his usual emotionless eyes flashed with dreadful horror. Even so, he did not dare to resist in front of the female demon and could only allow her to do what she wanted. The female demon's eyes flickered continuously as fragments of the sand demon's memories were glanced through by her, especially the scenes which had taken place at the small village. It seemed that she had used some unknown trick to recreate the scenes the sand demon had previously seen. However, this method was obviously extremely overbearing and not something a normal person could withstand. A moment later, the female demon stopped and the sand demon fell to the ground feebly, his body so weak that he looked like he was about to die. But the female demon did not care about him at all, and sneered, "Damn foreign race, they really are coming." Nearby, a demon with short stature and covered in black chi asked, "Madame, what happened?" The female demon turned around and sat on a large stone chair. She rested her chin on her small snow-white hand and replied lazily, "It's nothing. It's just that a group of our sand demons was killed, and the foreign race seems to have found a way to counter us." The short demon continued, "Does Madame want this subordinate to lead his people to kill them?" The female demon shook her head. "No. The demon saints gave orders before they went into retreat to heal. They wanted us to just defend, so we don't need to take any initiative to attack and cause more trouble. Then, do we just let the sand demons die in vain?" The short demon asked. "Die in vain?" The female demon laughed, but her eyes were piercing cold. "How could that be? I have committed the face of their leader to memory, and after the demon saints recover, I will settle accounts with him myself." As she spoke, she stretched out her pink tongue and licked her lips, a gluttonous look etched on her face. Her charming appearance made the short demon tremble as he forced himself to keep his eyes away from her as cold sweat drenched his back. This woman was a charm demon from the famous Charm Demon clan. Even among the 100 clans of the demon race, her clan was ranked quite high. Any man she targeted had never had a good end. Even if he was a demon great general himself, if he was immersed in the light of enchantment of this woman, he would soon lose his mind and become her toy. It was a beautiful dream to spend a night with a charm demon, but if one would become a walking corpse after that, it was ultimately more a disaster than a benefit. "Sir, where are we going?" you asked Xianxia curiously. Since they left the village 3 days ago, the marching direction of the 3,000-man army had seemed very strange. There was no pattern at all, as if Xianxia was navigating on a whim. Logically speaking, Xianxia was the leader of this group, and everyone must follow his orders. But such a purposeless and strange march was confusing. After enduring it for a few days, you finally could not hold her tongue and finally asked, "Pass the order. Turn southeast and advance at full speed." Xianxia yelled, then suddenly glanced at you, grinning. "Where else can we go? Of course, we're going for revenge." "Revenge? Yu and Lu, who stood together, were startled. Who are we seeking revenge from? Where? The troops had not been able to gather much information recently, and apart from the accidental attack in that village last time, everything had been calm for 3 days. It was to the point where they could not help but wonder if the demon race had retreated, so it was very puzzling that Xianxia suddenly mentioned revenge. Xianxia did not bother explaining to her as he focused on tracing the faint connection guiding him in the direction they were headed towards. He looked in that direction with narrowed eyes, which flickered in a cold light. A sand demon had been hidden in the village, which Xianxia already knew at the time. Nevertheless, Xianxia did not finish him off immediately, but instead quietly left a divine sense mark on him. Not long after his group had left the village, he could sense that the sand demon had begun traveling towards a certain direction, and stopped after half a day. In the past few days, the sand demon had not left that place, which meant that he had obviously returned to his hideout. That was Xianxia's target. The result of the first battle was not ideal. The army of 3,000 troops lost 100 people against just a few dozen sand demons. In the past few days, each and every barbarian warrior had been burning with rage and desire to avenge their dead companions. That base was the best target for them to vent their anger, and the Shaman Yo clan needed a tangible victory to boost their morale. Their march the past few days had also not been aimless. If one observed from the sky, the Shaman Yo clan had been marching in a circle with a radius of 300 kilometers with the demon's base at its center. The situation was better than what Xianxia had expected. There was no other demon race stronghold nearby. It seemed that it was the only base existing in this area of 1,000 kilometers. In that case, once the Shaman Yo clan started a fight against it, there was no need to worry about any attacks from behind. The only question now was, how many demons were there in this base? And what kind of masters were leading them? Half a day later, the army marched into a mountain. Colonel Xianxia slightly raised his hand, and the 3,000-man army came to an abrupt stop. An order was given to the clansmen to rest on the spot and restore their energy with some rations. Xianxia summoned the dozen shamans under his command for a short meeting next, and when they learnt about the demon cave located 100 kilometers ahead, their faces were filled with shock and disbelief. They had not seen Xianxia take any unusual actions the past few days, and he did not even leave their group. So where did all this information come from? The shamans were worried after learning that Xianxia was going to investigate the demon cave personally, and Yu and Lu even volunteered to take up this task in his stead. Although the two of them were just shaman masters, they went through intensive training in the Shaman Divine Temple for many years, and they had a good grasp of concealment spells. Spying did not require high strength, but if their whereabouts were exposed, they definitely would not end well. Xianxia naturally refused the twins' good intentions. After exchanging a few words with the shamans, Xianxia disappeared with a flicker. Taya had gotten used to this odd technique of his, but the other dozen shamans could not help dropping their jaws. They looked around for him but found no traces of Xianxia. After a while, Xianxia flitted into the demon cave 100 kilometers away like a ghost, the guards at the entrance completely unaware of his presence. This seemed to be the middle of a mountain, its interior hollowed out. The space was huge, and the passage into the mountain was winding, which made it easy to defend but difficult to attack. Xianxia concealed his aura and hid his figure while spying for information here. Without knowing whether there was a powerful master assuming command here, Xianxia did not dare to release his divine sense at will and could only investigate slowly. There were indeed a lot of demons of various different clans in the middle of this mountain. These demons had different sizes and body shapes. The tall demons appeared to be even more muscular than the most robust barbarian warriors, while some demons were only about a meter tall, like miniature men. Nevertheless, all of these demons exuded the ancient demon chi that Xianxia detested, and the varying intensities of this chi allowed their strengths to be roughly estimated. It was Xianxia's first time being in such close contact with the demon race, and he did not know what kind of abilities they possessed. Therefore, he did not dare to act rashly. As he swept through the demon cave in the middle of the mountain, Xianxia quickly discovered something else of importance. There were many demonized barbarians confined here. These barbarians were obviously the clansmen of the 4 destroyed clans. The intelligence said that the 4 clans were wiped out and none of them survived. But it seemed that this was not the case. A portion of the barbarians was transformed into demons. It was obvious that there was a big gap in status between these demonized barbarians and the orthodox demons. Any demon could order and kick around a demonized barbarian, while the latter would not complain at all. On the contrary, they were extremely cautious and obedient towards the demons. They were like slaves. There were not only ordinary demonized clansmen, though, as Xianxia even saw a few demonized shamans, the strongest of which was a shaman master. But now, this highly respected shaman master among the barbarians was treated like a slave, beaten and scolded by a short demon, without the slightest complaint. Shaking his head slightly, Xianxia continued his investigation. After a short walk, a sudden beastly roar mixed with indescribable hostility pierced the air. Xianxia frowned, followed the sound towards that side, and soon came to a huge cave. In the darkness, many pairs of scarlet eyes suddenly lit up as if they had noticed something and focused their gaze on Xianxia. Xianxia's expression hardened as he quickly used his nihility secret technique, exiling himself to the void. The red eyes continued staring for a while, before retracting themselves slowly. Xianxia could see clearly that the owners of these pairs of red eyes were giant beasts pulsing with ancient demon chi. There seemed to be barbarian beasts among the demon race, or perhaps calling them demon beast would be more appropriate. As for what the difference between these demon beasts and barbarian beasts were, Xianxia did not know. After carefully observing these demon beasts for a while, Xianxia released his divine sense slightly, and after confirming that no one else was around, he teleported next to a demon beast. In an instant, he covered it with his divine sense and stuffed it into the sealed world bead. This action startled the other demon beasts, and in an instant, hundreds of them stood up together, filling the cave with deafening roars. A rush of footsteps drew near as obviously this uproar was noticed by the demons and they had come to investigate. However, Xianxia had already flickered away. When the demons arrived, Xianxia had already disappeared. At this moment, Xianxia was feeling slightly uneasy. His sudden unplanned teleportation had brought him to a very unusual place. It was a very hazy grotto, one that was extremely empty, surrounded by strange rocks and stones. And inside a room up ahead came breathless sounds that could make anyone who heard them blush. The voice was tender and extremely pleasing to the ear, and the sound of it was like an invisible little hand plucking at one's heartstrings, arousing the audience's deepest desires. Xianxia hid in the dark shadows awkwardly, obviously conscious of what was going on inside this room. Quietly, he checked the area quickly with his divine sense, and it was exactly the same as he guessed. Inside the grotto, laid a strong and burly, naked barbarian man on a stone bed, with a graceful, curvy figure sitting directly on top of him. Her delicate and fair body was drenched in fragrant sweat as she rode up and down continuously, gasping incessantly to catch her breath. The movement of her snowy white figure sent Xianxia's head spinning and made his mouth dry. A look of bliss and pleasure was etched on the face of the barbarian warrior, who lay motionless on the stone bed, completely drowned in lust. The visual from the strong contrast of the strong physique of the barbarian and the tender body of the woman was almost irresistible to any man. Shameless! Xianxia cursed in his heart, and carefully withdrew his divine sense. Although he did not investigate carefully, he knew that this woman was not to be underestimated. She should have the same strength as a high-rank shaman king, and was definitely the strongest master he had encountered in this demon cave. Perhaps she was even the leader of this place. The demonic characteristics of this woman were quite obvious. Not to mention the vague ancient demon chi surrounding her tender body. The short tail attached to her bottom was an apparent sign of her mysterious identity. It was also fortunate that this woman was distracted at the moment, otherwise, Xianxia's sudden appearance would definitely have alerted her. Xianxia was not really afraid of an existence comparable to a high-rank shaman king, but he was here just to gather some intelligence. Thus, it would be bad if he alarmed the enemy. Silently, Xianxia waited for an opportunity to leave. On the stone bed, the woman grew more and more excited, her hair flying about messily, waving in rhythm with her movements while her moans grew louder and louder. When the woman was about to reach a peak, Xianxia took the opportunity to leave, but a sudden black shadow appeared behind him and threw a dagger quickly towards his neck. The dagger was a matte black without any shine. Its existence had no trace at all, and there was no sign of movement from the black shadow before throwing the dagger, while Xianxia, who was in the enemy's lair, did not release his divine sense in time to defend himself. In that moment he let his guard down, the dagger successfully landed on him. Xianxia's alertness shot up when the chill touched his neck and he reflexively pushed his shaman strength to resist it. Chi! The pointed stab of the sharp dagger scraped Xianxia's neck, spilling a string of fine blood. The man behind the sneak attack was surprised by this outcome. Although he succeeded in the attack, and knew that the other party was injured, the wound was superficial. In other words, his sneak attack failed to achieve the desired results. Just as he was stunned, Xianxia immediately turned around to punch him. Following a grunt, a figure about a meter tall suddenly appeared from the black fog. His eyes bulged and his chest caved in, slamming into the stone wall and spurting out blood. After landing squarely on the ground, apparent fear was etched on the short demon's face. Fear that only grew more obvious when he saw Xianxia swinging his fist again. With a flicker, the small demon turned into a black smoke and dodged the incoming assault. Xianxia frowned. Although he had fought against sand demons a few days ago, it was his first time facing this type of short demon, and he did not have time now to find a way to counter such a troublesome skill. The black fog quickly retreated. At the same time, a sharp cry sounded from behind, like an evil spirit's screech. Xianxia's soul trembled at the sound and his head began to spin as a flurry of illusions flashed before his eyes. Soul attack! Xianxia shook his head vigorously and pushed his spiritual energy wildly to eliminate the influence of the scream. The sound of something slicing through the air rang out at that moment. Xianxia quickly raised his arm to the side, blocking a soft whip, made of unknown material, but that was not the end. Although the sudden attack was blocked, the soft whip miraculously wrapped itself around his hand, and the tip of the whip struck straight at his face. Instantly, the tail of the whip head actually transformed into a large mouth filled with fangs. A bright green light flashed in its mouth as it snapped its jaw at Xianxia, hissing. It was not a whip, but a venomous snake. Xianxia quickly reached out his other hand and accurately caught the snake head before clenching his fist and crushing its head. Eh? A voice of surprise came from behind. It seemed that the attacker was taken aback by Xianxia's quick reflex and his ability to resolve her hidden killing move. The next moment, a whiff of fragrance flew to Xianxia's side and transformed into a white light, shrouding him with countless palm shadows. Xianxia took a deep breath, stood firm, and responded with his own flurry of palms. Pa pa pa. The clash resulted in a rapid and continuous series of crackles. When the white light turned back and withdrew, both sides had already exchanged 100 palm strikes. The surging force caused the surrounding sand and stones to tremble, and the cave seemed like it would collapse at any time. Everything happened in an instant. It was just a blink of an eye since the short demon launched the sneak attack on him until the fight Xianxia had with the white silhouette. Only then did Xianxia slowly turn around with a slight smile as he looked forward mockingly. Less than 20 meters away from him, a woman was standing quietly, looking delicate and pitiful. However, her body was exceptionally curvaceous. She had tall, proud peaks, a flat belly, and long, slender legs. Her snowy white skin seemed so delicate that one would desire to handle it with care lest it be marred. As if she had just been graced with rain and dew, the female demon's face was slightly flushed, and her bright eyes were filled with a trace of satisfaction. This female demon was the same woman Xianxia had spied on earlier, the charm demon. In such close proximity, she could obviously sense the fight Xianxia had with the black shadow. The charm demon was completely naked at this moment, with her most beautiful parts generously revealed, but she didn't seem the slightest bit uncomfortable or embarrassed. Beside the charm demon was the fluctuating aura of the black shadow, drifting shakily. It was obviously the demon who launched the sneak attack on Xianxia but ended up being wounded instead. "It's you." The charm demon looked at Xianxia with her eyes brightened and tilted her head with an innocent look. I'm impressed that you found this place. Yang Kai grinned. Do we know each other? The charm demon giggled. Don't we know each other now? Yang Kai nods. How can I address you? The charm demon let out a peal of silvery laughter as her snow-white peaks bounced slightly. Then, she replied with a flutter of her eyes. I'm Demon King Xianxia. Demon King. Yang Kai raised his eyebrows. If you are a Demon King, the position above Demon King must be Demon Saint. Yes? Xianxia smiled at Yang Kai and answered faintly. Little brother, are you trying to extract information from me? Your little trick isn't clever enough. Yang Kai shrugged. I'm just trying to have a conversation with you, since this is our first meeting. It's up to you to answer or not. Interesting. Xianxia glanced up and down at Yang Kai before frowning slightly and continuing with a little regret. But your physique looks quite weak. Yang Kai clicked his tongue. Having a small body doesn't mean I'm weak. You're someone who has been through numerous battles before. So haven't you met something that looked impressive but was utterly useless in the end? After hearing it, Xianxia nodded in agreement. You're right. Above Demon Kings are the Demon Saints. Don't you have saints too? They just had a fight a few days ago, so don't tell me you have no idea about it. Of course I do. It seems that both sides suffered great losses. Unfortunately, I didn't witness it with my own eyes. Xianxia looked at him strangely. Witness it with your own eyes? You should be careful that your recklessness doesn't cost you your life. Yang Kai guffawed. Everything I have is tough, especially my life. Xianxia pressed on meaningfully. I'll have to confirm that for myself. You will have the chance? Yang Kai nodded lightly before changing his tone. If what's above you are the demon saints, then what's beneath you? What's beneath me? Can't you see for yourself? Xianxia's face suddenly blushed with shyness and her tone became gentle. She half-displayed, half-hid the alluring parts of her body intentionally as she spoke, causing the surrounding atmosphere to suddenly change. Yang Kai gulped his saliva and looked down. The short demon who had been standing next to Xianxia immediately grunted and fled from the scene as fast as he could. Xianxia was performing her charm technique, so he had to escape, otherwise he would instantly become her slave. Don't mind him. He's just a useless little thing. Xianxia smiled gently, a slight moan reverberating out of her throat as her delicate body flushed, and she asked as she bit her red lips, I'm a little uncomfortable right now. Little brother, can you help me? Yes. Yang Kai called out immediately with glazed eyes and walked forward. His breathing became heavy, and his eyes were locked on Xianxia's snowy white body like a leech. His aggressive look seemed to please Xianxia, and she felt unimaginable pleasure all over her body. She giggled, releasing a faint ripple of power in her laughter before she opened her arms and tossed herself at Yang Kai. In her arms, Yang Kai's eyes, which should have been lost in lust, suddenly flashed as he grabbed Xianxia's hair and pulled her body backwards. That hurts, Xianxia squealed, frowning a bit with a confused look in her eyes. What are you trying to do? Yang Kai grinned. What do you think I'm going to do? Xianxia was shocked. How can you? Seeing the mocking look on Yang Kai's face, Xianxia knew that she had failed to charm him. How was that possible, though? She was from the famous Charm Demon clan, a Demon King Charm Demon. Yang Kai's aura was obviously several realms lower than hers, so such an opponent should be easily manipulated, but her charm technique failed to work on him at all. Clearly, his previous delirious actions were all just an act. Looking at the sarcastic and cold light in his eyes at the moment, how could there be any trace of him being charmed? Yang Kai snorted. You dare use such a trivial charm technique in front of this shaman? You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. As his words fell, he punched out towards Xianxia's plentiful peaks. Xianxia had never encountered such a situation before. Therefore, she could not react in time. Only when Yang Kai attacked her did her beautiful face change drastically as she let out a scream. When Yang Kai was about to attack, it seemed that an invisible blade stabbed into his head. However, it did not deter his punch as he pushed through the pair to hit Xianxia's chest. His shaman strength exploded with a bang. A mass of blood burst from Xianxia's chest on impact. At the same time, with the aid of the impact and taking advantage of the moment when Yang Kai's soul was affected, Xianxia forcibly flung her head forward, sacrificing her hair in order to slip herself out of Yang Kai's grip like a loach. After regaining her balance, Xianxia looked down at herself with a darkened face, her body trembling in rage. One of her two snowy white peaks that she had always been incredibly proud of was gone, and the blood from the wound was flowing all the way down her lower abdomen, staining her graceful legs. "I'll kill you!" Xianxia madly screamed. She was a charm demon, and her figure was an important part of her strength. It was difficult for her to accept that her perfect figure had been destroyed by Yang Kai, and although it was possible to recover from such an injury, she would need to pay a heavy price for it. Because of her carelessness, she suffered a great loss from a barbarian who was several realms weaker than her. Yang Kai did not say a word and instead flickered, shooting towards Xianxia again. Although his purpose of coming here was to collect intelligence this time, since he was exposed, he would not shy away from a fight. It would be best if he could kill the Demon King here, so that this trip would not be wasted. Seeing the scrawny barbarian rushing towards her like an angry lion, Xianxia instinctively felt a sense of danger, as if she would die here if she did not leave. She could not believe that she would have such a thought, but after hesitating for a moment, Xianxia decided to trust her instincts. A circle of light suddenly burst out from her body, transmitting a huge and incomparable force of resistance. Yang Kai was already right in front of her, but before he managed to grab her, he was knocked back by this circle of light. A sand demon suddenly popped out of the ground, grabbed the injured Xianxia, and burrowed back into the ground once more, disappearing in the blink of an eye. How could she dare delay and wait for Yang Kai to launch another attack? Yang Kai released his divine sense and found Xianxia's aura speeding away, burrowing deeply into the ground and soon escaping his range of perception, causing him to sigh. This sand demon's ability was really annoying, and Yang Kai could not help frowning. Fortunately, these sand demons seemed to have relatively low sentience. Otherwise, the special ability to burrow through the earth alone would be enough to overpower the ancient barbarians. Xianxia had escaped, and Yang Kai was unable to pursue her. There were bursts of rumbling noises from all directions. Obviously, other demons had noticed the commotion or had received Xianxia's orders to come, wanting to overpower Yang Kai with numbers. Bundles of black shadows loomed in the darkness, all of them resembling the short demon from before, who had superior concealment and assassination skills. But before they could do anything, Yang Kai had already plunged into the enemy lines with a grin like a tiger descending from the mountain. Blood flowers blossomed everywhere Yang Kai moved as he crushed the enemy like dry weeds and rotten wood. The scene was both beautiful and grotesque. The shadows were thrown into a panic, and they quickly retreated into hiding. Apart from these smaller demons, muscular demon warriors rushed out of the surrounding corridors with their weapons raised, launching a bold and deadly charge towards Yang Kai. Yang Kai did not evade though, and instead summoned his myriad sword. With a swing, the demons who dared to pounce at him were cleanly cut into two, not a single one able to escape. Blood and organs flowed out and filled the cave with the pungent smell of death. The outcome of that fierce battle was the completely unharmed Yang Kai and the loss of hundreds of demons. The demons began to hesitate. The person in front of them was not someone they could contend with, and stepping forward was just a useless sacrifice. As such, they did not dare to come forward easily and instead froze in place with horrified expressions, looking at Yang Kai vigilantly. "You're not coming?" Yang Kai raised his sword as he grinned. "If you won't, I will." The demons did not answer. Yang Kai moved, flickering around the cave at lightning speed, and when he returned to where he first stood, viscous blood was dripping from the myriad's sword. Figures fell to the ground silently. Yang Kai sneered, "A bunch of trash." Just as he finished speaking, his face suddenly changed as a greenish tinge crept onto his cheeks and he cried out involuntarily, "That slut actually used poison on me? Shameless." The green tinge was like a living being that immediately started spreading to all parts of his body after its emergence. In the blink of an eye, Yang Kai had turned completely green. Yang Kai was fuming. "Ha ha ha ha." Xianxia's erratic laugh echoed loudly in the cave. She must be hiding somewhere in the cave to observe him, and with Yang Kai's current strength, it was impossible to locate her with his divine sense. Satisfied with her little trick, Xianxia called out, "Green demon poison!" Although green demons don't have the strongest poison, out of the 100 clans of the demon race, their poison is the most mysterious and difficult to resist. "Little brother, you're dead. Maybe you can beg me to turn you into a slave and live." Xianxia frowned and pondered. He recalled that there was indeed a green-colored demon who looked a little different from the other demons he killed just now. If that was the case, that demon was the green demon that Xianxia mentioned. But Xianxia did not notice any trace of an attack from it, and he did not have any actual contact with that demon at all. But even so, Xianxia was poisoned. The green demon poison was truly mysterious and difficult to guard against. With a cold snort, Xianxia growled in a low voice, "Sorry, but I have no interest in used goods." Xianxia's voice abruptly turned chilly. "I will slap all the teeth from your mouth and make you pay for your words. Used goods, used goods, used goods. Your whole family is just a bunch of used goods." Xianxia didn't say another word, too angry to speak. The area suddenly fell silent, with neither a trace of another demon nor Xianxia. Xianxia curled his lip and mocked, "If you're not coming out again, I'll leave." There was still no response. Xianxia shrugged and with a flicker, disappeared from where he stood. Long after they confirmed Xianxia had left, Xianxia slowly reappeared from the shadows, still naked, but her body no longer looked tender and charming like before. Instead, she was full of malice and rage, the chills radiating from her body even capable of freezing fire. The black short demon appeared beside her silently and asked nervously, "Madam, are we going to let that guy go just like that?" Xianxia coldly snorted, "You don't want him to go?" The short demon replied, "He killed many of us. Then, why didn't you stop him just now?" Xianxia turned to him and asked. The short demon looked embarrassed. "Even you refused to face such a madman. So what can I do with my pitiful strength? A reflexive punch from that guy almost took my life. I really can't figure out how such force could be exerted from that thin-looking body. Humph, he's poisoned with the green demon poison. Unless he becomes a part of our demon race, he will die. Just wait, he'll be back to beg me soon enough." Xianxia sneered confidently, her face looking smug. The short demon agreed after hearing that. Although the Green Demon clan held no significant position in the demon race's 100 clans, only serving under the Charm Demon clan, their poison was extremely lethal when used against non-demons. Once affected by the Green Demon poison, there was no other antidote than to be demonized. Now that the terrifying thin barbarian had been poisoned, there was no need to pursue him. Xianxia flickered and disappeared without a trace. The short demon glanced at the corpses around him and ordered with a sigh, "Throw these into the beast den." Many sand demons immediately appeared from the ground, carrying the fresh corpses without saying a word, transporting them to the beast den where they would obviously be turned into food for the demon beasts. "Sir, what happened?" 100 kilometers away from the demon cave, Xianxia appeared and a dozen shamans looked at him in shock while all the surrounding barbarian warriors' jaws dropped. Xianxia was currently entirely green and looked rather unusual. The great green glow coming from his head was particularly conspicuous amongst the crowd. Such an appearance would make the crowd roll on the ground in laughter on other occasions. But everyone knew that Xianxia had gone to the demon cave to gather information, and suddenly returned looking completely green. Something unexpected had obviously happened. This shocked everyone, so how could they laugh? All eyes simply stared at Xianxia nervously. Xianxia was the leader of this group and the spiritual pillar of everyone's hearts. If anything unexpected happened to him, this army would become leaderless. In a war between two races, how effective could an army be without its leader? Perhaps the demon race could wipe out the 3,000 people in just one small counterattack. "I was accidentally poisoned." Xianxia's face darkened, and with a wave of his hand he repelled the few shamans who were about to approach him and ordered, "Don't get too close to me, it could be contagious." Contagious. Upon hearing this, the shamans who were about to approach him instinctively retreated a few steps but immediately felt awkward after perceiving that this behavior was not very appropriate. "Is that the green demon poison?" you suddenly asked. "Ha! Yang Kai looked at her in surprise. How do you know? It was obvious that you was knowledgeable about this poison by guessing the name of this poison accurately. But even Yang Kai only knew about this just now, so how could you have known about it? You nodded lightly. So, it really is the green demon poison. Lu continued. Then there is no cure. The twins directly sentenced Yang Kai to death, and two pairs of beautiful eyes looked at him pitifully. How do you know about the green demon poison? Yang Kai asked again. The twins glanced at each other before explaining. There is an ancient book in the Shaman Divine Temple, which has some records of our previous conflict with the demon race. There is little information and it is not very comprehensive, but there is still some information about the green demons. We came across it accidentally while reading, so it was from the Shaman Divine Temple. Yang Kai nodded lightly. From the knowledge he gained from Senior Qing's inheritance, Yang Kai learned that this was not the first time that the demon race had invaded this world. In other words, the residents of this land had some dealings with the demon race before. It had been tens of thousands of years, though, and over time almost no one remembered what happened during that war. However, the Shaman Divine Temple was the most important place for the entire ancient barbarian race, so it was only normal that it had some records about the demon race. The oldest shaman apprentice of the Shaman Yo clan trembled and asked, Is there really no way to cure this green demon poison in Sir Shaman Yo? Yu and Lu shook their heads simultaneously before Yu continued. Although there is no way to get rid of it, you don't have to worry about it being contagious. Green demon poison cannot be spread from person to person. As she spoke, she stepped forward to touch Yang Kai's cheek to prove her statement. Yang Kai frowned but did not avoid it. After you retrieved her hand, there was really no trace of contamination. This was a small piece of good news. However, the expressions on all of the shamans present were grievous. Yang Kai quickly asked, What are the symptoms of this green demon poison? You shook her head. The information in that ancient book was incomplete. Only a few words about the poison were mentioned. I only know that you will turn green and the only cure is to demonize yourself into a demon, otherwise you will undoubtedly die. I don't know much more than that. Lu asked. Sir, do you have any last words? We can convey them for you. Yang Kai burst out laughing. I'm not dead yet. Lu pressed on seriously. But if you die, you will have no chance to speak. Yang Kai nodded. But I won't die. Although I don't know why. I actually feel fine now, so please don't look so worried. Yu and Lu frowned at the same time and felt the anxiety in each other's hearts when they looked at each other. As twins, the two had been cultivating shamanic spells together for many years, and they had already reached the state of heart resonance. Therefore, although they only exchanged a simple glance, they clearly understood each other's thoughts. The green demon poison was incurable, but since Shaman Yo mentioned that he would not die, he had no choice but to. How much do you know about the demon race? Yang Kai questioned again. Yu kept her thoughts to herself and answered, Not much. There is little information about them recorded in the ancient books. Other than the green demons, there are similar red demons. These two types of demons were responsible for killing and maiming countless barbarians in the last war. Red demons? Yang Kai raised his brow and some funny figures surfaced in his mind. Are they short and round with red skin and hair? Perhaps? Yu was not sure. What special abilities do the red demons have? Yu replied, Red demons are also called the burst demons. The only value and function of their existence is their explosive ability. Are there really such demons? Yang Kai was taken aback. In the demon cave, Yang Kai did kill several red-skinned demons, who were short, fat and round like a barrel. He did not feel anything when he killed them, and only learnt that they were born to explode after listening to Yu's explanation. Thinking about it, if they encountered an army of red demons without knowing about this in advance, the barbarian race would definitely suffer a great loss once the red demons got too close. This was another extremely crucial piece of intelligence. However, the only thing the sisters Yu and Lu knew about the demon race were red demon and green demon. They had no idea about anything else, not even the sand demons. Therefore, they failed to provide Yang Kai with a lot of information for reference. On the contrary, Yang Kai found out a lot of information after his trip to the demon cave. He disclosed everything he saw to the shamans and asked them to inform the others, so that the clansmen could watch out for these demons in the future. After that, Yang Kai found an empty place, lifted his hand, and summoned a huge black figure. It was the demon beast that Yang Kai had abducted from the demon cave. The dark aura lingering on its body was constantly spilling out, and as soon as it appeared here, it roared, startling the dozen shamans. They looked at the demon beast in disbelief, and then looked back at Yang Kai. They had no idea how he could make such a large thing appear out of thin air. Yang Kai cast a few restrictions on the demon beast to seal its strength and movement. Therefore, despite its fierce appearance, it could do no harm. The demon race seems to have cavalry too, and this demon beast seems to be a typical mount. Study it and see if you can find any of its weaknesses. It would be best if you can find something useful, but it's fine if you can't just kill it directly. After leaving an order, Yang Kai walked to a newly built wooden house. The group of shamans immediately surrounded the demon beast and started to study it with great interest. Time passed as Yang Kai stayed in the wooden house and did not appear for 2 days. No one knew what he was doing while the 3,000-strong army was full of anger and fighting spirit, but with no place to vent. In the demon cave, Xianxia sat on her throne, her tight and revealing clothes showcasing the exquisite details of her beautiful figure. It was unknown what kind of secret technique she used, but the peak Yang Kai had destroyed a few days ago had fully recovered and regained its majesty again. At this moment, she was resting her chin on her palm, as if she was taking a nap. The short demon stood quietly below the throne, exuding no aura, like a dead man. After a long while, Xianxia opened her eyes and asked faintly, "What's going on over there? Why hasn't he come yet?" The short demon immediately replied, "According to the Sand Demon's investigation, the foreign race gathered over there seem a little emotionally unstable. As for that guy, he has been in hiding the whole time and did not do anything special." Xianxia sneered. "It seems that he is trying to expel the green demon poison. How ridiculous! If the green demon poison could be so easily cured, it will not be the trickiest poison of our demon race. However, I'm impressed that he can endure for 2 days and still not give up." She stood up and continued with her sharp eyes, "Pass down my order. Prepare to move out." The short demon was stunned. "Madam, are we going to fight them?" Xianxia sneered. "Since he doesn't want to come to me, then I'll go to him. It's rare to find such an interesting slave. I don't want him to die just for nothing." After hearing this, the short demon could not help feeling some pity for the scrawny barbarian. But he still turned around and went to relay the order. In an instant, the demon cave was filled with ancient demon chi as many demons gathered. An hour later, 50 kilometers away, Shaman Yo clan clansmen suddenly felt a strange rumbling from the ground, and at the same time, the aerial cavalry patrolling in the sky sounded their horns. The earth-shaking sound resounded across the world as all 3,000 barbarian warriors looked solemn and took up their weapons one after another. Yang Kai's body was still glowing green, but he quickly walked out of the wooden house and looked over towards where the demon cave was located. The sky over the cave was now dark, as if it was on the eve of a storm, and this darkness was rushing over quickly, seemingly swallowing the light wherever it passed. The corner of Yang Kai's mouth curved up as he sneered. The dozen shamans standing in front of the 3,000 warriors looked over at him with anxiety. Yang Kai had been poisoned by the green demon poison for 2 days, and although he appeared to be fine now, who knew when he would succumb? A battle was about to begin, so what if he was affected by the green poison and suddenly died? In such a fight, once one side's leader was killed, it would be a massive blow to morale. It may turn a certain victory into a tragic defeat in an instant. But at this critical moment, no matter how worried they were, none dared to ask. They could only pray secretly in their hearts, while even Yu and Lu had prepared for the worst. Yang Kai swept his eyes across the dozen shamans, then across his 3,000 warriors. After taking a deep breath, he shouted loudly, "Standing here are the most elite warriors of our barbarian race, the brothers and sisters of the Shaman Yo clan. The demon race is coming for us now, and our only choice is to fight them to the death. Our opponents are the ones that ambushed us in that village a few days ago. Several of our brothers and sisters died that day, but this is just the beginning. If we cannot win this war, millions more will die. They will kill all our men, plunder our women, enslave our children, and conquer our land. The breaths of the 3,000 people became heavy, and their fighting spirit soared up to pierce the sky, as if it could tear the sea of clouds apart. This is our first real battle, so we have only one goal: to win. Not only to win, but to win decisively. Only by doing so can we wash away the humiliation suffered by our Shaman Yo clan a few days ago. My warriors, are you ready? The troops roared passionately. Even without the blessing of the bloodlust spell, the eyes of the 3,000 warriors glowed red, like wild beasts. Xianxia smiled slightly and turned to point at the approaching dark cloud. If you are ready, make them pay. The giant eagles screeched and the aerial cavalry took to the skies. Under the leadership of their captains, the 10 subunits quickly headed for the enemy without saying a word, organized and rapid footsteps shaking the ground beneath them. The elite guards surrounded the dozen shamans as obscure incantations rang out. The light of shamanic spells bloomed from the shamans, enveloping the 10 units, one after another. Bloodlust spell, light body spell, stone armor spell, great strength spell, life chains. Every warrior was covered with colorful radiance, and all of the ancient barbarians visibly grew in size, their muscles bulging as their faces turned vicious. Even their red eyes became a brighter shade of crimson. Without playing any tricks, the demon race and the barbarian race seemed to have agreed to charge straight at each other. Overlooking from a high altitude, 2 armies of thousands were approaching from opposite directions, and the broad flat land at the center was where the battle would be joined. The 50-kilometer distance between the two groups was shortened in just a stick worth of incense. The fighting spirit and murderous intent of the barbarians reached a fever pitch during this several dozen-kilometer charge. When the dark clouds began to shroud over the land, the two armies officially met. The ancient barbarians who were charging in front were slightly stunned, however, because they saw familiar faces before them, faces that belonged to the clansmen of the barbarian race of the past. The vanguard of the demon race army was actually their demonized clansmen. However, at this moment, these clansmen had lost their minds and gone insane. It seemed that what stood in front of them were not their former clansmen, but their sworn enemies. The enemy mercilessly lifted their weapons and charged towards them. Kill! Roars echoed. The people of the Shaman Yo clan were slightly stunned, but they quickly regained their composure and prepared themselves. Thanks to the intelligence obtained by Xianxia, everyone was aware that this situation would occur when they engaged the demon race. Every barbarian had asked himself, if I really meet my demonized clansmen, would I be able to kill them? No matter what condition these people were in, they were once fellow barbarians. They were their brothers and sisters, their clansmen. Perhaps they would still have a chance to save them. Nevertheless, they soon knew that it was a meaningless thought. If they really encountered such people during battle, killing them would be the best mercy for them. Hesitating would be an irresponsible act to their companions. In front of the crowd, Ahu leapt 10 meters into the air and slashed down with a huge axe in his hand. Before the attack even landed, the sharp aura from the huge axe had already split the skin of the demonized clansman in front of him, and when Ahu's attack was fully swung, that clansman had been split into 2. Ahu held up his huge axe and roared ferociously, "Kill!" The battlefield seemed to have transformed into a huge meat grinder, crushing the creatures in it into paste. One after another demonized barbarians collapsed. Although they were also born barbarian warriors, they had not been blessed by any shamanic spells, so after being demonized, they had lost their minds and their only instinct was to kill. How could they win against fully equipped and enraged barbarians with the blessings of shamanic spells? Therefore, as soon as the two armies met, the demon side suffered heavy casualties. The Shaman Yo clan warriors rushed over them like raging bulls, leaving no survivors wherever they passed. The 10 units, each with about 250 to 300 people, were like 10 sharp swords piercing into the formation of the demon race, led by their respective captains. Weapons clashed, heads flew off, and strong bodies fell down one after another, their eyes reflecting a hint of desire for home mixed with confusion. The demonized clansmen did not know what they were doing even at the moment of their death. They had no idea why they had to block the way of their former brothers and sisters, or why they had to swing their swords at them. Even so, they were being crumpled like dead leaves being swept. After just a stick worth of incense, the vanguard army of the demon race was completely crushed. Wastes. Xianxia, who was sitting behind the army, was not alarmed at all. She maintained her graceful pose as she looked at the deaths of the demons in front of her emotionlessly. Quite contrary to the ancient barbarians on the other side, it was not the first time the demons were going to battle with the barbarian race. Previously, they were under the lead of the demon saints, and had charged forth with unstoppable momentum, exterminating four barbarian clans easily. But now, when she took charge of the army, she finally realized the problem of facing this foreign race. This foreign race and the demon race were basically equal in individual strength, but with the blessings of those contemptible shamans, they immediately became superior to the demons. Shamanic spells were truly amazing. However, Xianxia did not care at all, as they were just a group of demonized slaves, so she naturally did not care about their deaths. The key of this war was not those demons, not even the two armies, but the shaman who was afflicted by the green demon poison. Looking into the distance and beyond the obstacles, Xianxia saw a man completely covered in green light and curled her lips as she felt he was probably at his limit. Scatter! On the battlefield, Ahu roared and his voice echoed into the sky. The barbarians stopped their advance at the sound of this roar and changed their directions, dispersing in an orderly manner. A group of short, round and red-skinned figures suddenly jumped out from behind the vanguard of the demon race. Each of these figures had a ferocious and excited look on their face, as if they had hot chicken blood flowing through their veins. Their bodies bounced off the ground, traveling several tens of meters each time as they fearlessly rushed towards the barbarian race. It was the Red Demons. Thanks to the knowledge the twins, Yu and Lu, learnt from the Shaman Divine Temple, the barbarian warriors immediately reacted after seeing these red-skinned demons. Otherwise, they would have been seriously injured or even killed if they encountered them without a clue. The dispersed barbarians' warriors bypassed the red demons and continued charging forward. The red demons pursued, bounding and bouncing towards the most concentrated gatherings with all haste. Shoo! Numerous sharp arrows came from high up in the sky, piercing through the air full of murderous intent. Each of the arrows accurately hit the body of a red demon, setting them off. Their red skin became bloodier in color, and a dreadfully dangerous aura gushed out of their bodies. Their originally round bodies suddenly expanded several times over before exploding with a loud bang. The explosive force was even strong enough to tear the local space. Oh! Xianxia looked at the fireworks in the air and could not help wiping the cold sweat on his forehead. The explosion of these burst demons was truly powerful. Although the explosion of an individual or even two of these demons was not impressive, the impact of the explosion of 100 of them could even take down a shaman king. He was really amazed by the demon race for being able to breed so many strange beings like the green demons and red demons. On the other side, Xianxia's satisfied smile suddenly froze as she stared coldly at the aerial cavalry and gritted her teeth. Damn it! According to what she knew, the foreign race should have little to no information about them. However, when the red demons appeared just now, the foreign race responded accordingly and completely neutralized their raid, which caused her to suffer a loss in manpower without any gain. Shoo! The sound of the arrows whistled through the air endlessly as all the giant eagle riders possessed excellent marksmanship, consistently landing killing blows from above. Each arrow could kill a bouncing red demon and save many of their fellow warriors' lives. Kill them! Xianxia waved her hand. Numerous wisps of black fog behind her suddenly merged into the void. A moment later, a small figure appeared silently beside an aerial cavalry rider without warning and slashed towards his neck with a dark dagger. The dagger was extremely sharp, and even Xianxia suffered a minor injury from it scraping him. Therefore, if these cavalry riders were hit, their heads would definitely roll. The archer who was sitting on the giant eagle drew his bow, unaware of the incoming danger. His eagle-like eyes locked onto a red demon below. Just as the short demon was about to succeed, another dagger suddenly appeared from nowhere, accurately blocking the attack right in front of the aerial cavalry archer's neck. The two daggers collided, and the demon who launched the sneak attack frowned while vigilantly retreating. He was a born assassin. Thus, he only attacked opportunistically and was surprised that someone managed to block his blow. When he looked up, he saw a petite girl with a delicate body and long hair flying in the wind like a waterfall. She appeared next to the aerial cavalry and strangely wielded a dagger in each of her hands, one in an obverse side while one in a reverse side. She looked so fragile that the wind could blow her away at any moment. She actually uses two daggers? The assassin demon frowned. As an assassin, he naturally knew the difficulty of wielding dual daggers. It seemed that she was an assassin too, and a highly skilled one at that. He could not help licking his lips, secretly feeling exhilarated and looking forward to competing with her. Slaughter? The girl suddenly opened her mouth. Her voice was low, her head slightly raised, her expression pious, as if she were praying to some god. The assassin demon was stunned. Feast! When the words fell, the girl fluttered like a butterfly, her posture so elegant and beautiful that anyone would become entranced upon seeing her dance. Her black hair flew in the air as she radiated a freezing cold light. The assassin demon did not have the mood to appreciate this beautiful sight, though, as he was shivering all over. Assassins needed exceptional mental clarity and stability, and given that he was one of the best assassins, his mental fortitude was particularly outstanding. Therefore, under normal circumstances, his emotions would remain completely unaffected by what happened around him. But at this moment, he seemed to be witnessing a terrifying scene. While he was lost in fright, he also showed a sense of satisfaction, as if he would not regret it even if he died right now. He was witnessing the most subtle method of assassination he had ever seen. The cold light permeated the air, flashing as it shrouded an area of 300 meters. Chi-chi-chi-chi. Slashing sounds rang out as strange spurts of blood appeared mid-air. When the girl stopped her dance, a string of blood beads dripped from the dual daggers in her hands. Pu-piu-piu. The hidden assassin demons abruptly appeared with expressions of shock etched on each of their faces. It seemed that they did not expect anyone could find them while they were hidden. Every assassin demon had received only one wound, but those wounds were all fatal. Their eyes were filled with disbelief as one by one they fell from the sky, collapsing into the masses of blood on the ground, horrifyingly. "What is your name?" The assassin demon, who was facing the girl directly, asked blankly. The girl turned her head and looked at him, replying indifferently, "Taya." The assassin demon mumbled, repeating the name to himself as if to memorize it before. In the next moment, a jet of blood shot from his chest and he too fell, dying before even hitting the ground. Although Taya's action deterred the assassin demons and saved the lives of the aerial cavalry, there were still more assassin demons hiding nearby. A beam of light shot from below at that moment and turned into a circle of light, enveloping all the aerial cavalry in it. The next moment, the eyes of all the aerial cavalry suddenly brightened, as if there was a torch burning in them. This light seemed capable of piercing through the veil of the world and illuminating all shadows hidden in the dark. Eagle Eye Spell. After receiving the support of a shaman, the eyes of the aerial cavalry immediately locked onto the assassin demons who were lurking around them, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Arrows shot out rapidly, impaling these still unaware assassin demons. These assassins naturally did not sit waiting for death though, and upon seeing that they were exposed, they immediately launched a decisive attack. The aerial cavalry riding their giant eagles agilely dodged the assassins mid-air, rendering this charge futile. Yu and Lu, who had just regained their composure, chanted an incantation at the same time, and after 3 breaths, a long lightning snake shot from the twins. An assassin demon was unable to evade and was struck by the lightning snake, causing all of his hair to stand on end and his body to be scorched from head to toe. The lightning snake then burst out of the assassin demon's body, transforming into a lightning net, covering the entire sky. One by one, the assassin demons were paralyzed and started shaking. The aerial cavalry, who were chasing after them, shot their arrows without even a moment's delay, piercing their chests through. The lightning net had exposed all the assassin demons while the aerial cavalry were not affected at all. This was evidence of Yu and Lu's exquisite ability to control shamanic spells. The aerial cavalry no longer had to worry about the silent assassins and once again demonstrated their amazing combat effectiveness by supporting their brethren down below. Xianxia sent 3 waves of assassin demons, one after another, but none of them managed to kill a single aerial cavalry, causing her to fume at the loss of so many of her troops. On the battlefield, the demons and barbarians fought head-on with each other, with the demonized barbarians as the vanguard. The strategy of letting the red demons use the frontal clash as a distraction turned out useless and instead allowed the ancient barbarians to rush the demon formations and disrupt their coordination. Sand demons relied on their earth escape ability to travel underground and create disturbances on the battlefield, which was indeed effective and caused some damage to the Shaman Nyo clan. However, blessed by life chains, the lives of all the ancient barbarians were linked, so even if someone suffered a fatal injury, they would not die immediately. The damage was evenly distributed among those connected by the life chains while vitality from those who weren't injured moved to help their wounded clansmen recover. So far, the demons suffered hundreds of casualties, but none of the barbarians had fallen. Life chains deserved its reputation as one of the most important shamanic spells in large-scale warfare. With such a shamanic spell connecting them all, everyone in the Shaman Nyo clan dared to even face against a dragon. Xianxia grew agitated. She had paid a heavy price for her rash decision this time. Before the battle, she thought she could secure a victory with a surprise attack using red demons, but did not expect that this strategy would turn out useless. The Shadow Demon clan who went forward after that were also killed by the opponent's shamans and archers. Although the numbers of the 2 armies were similar, the combat effectiveness was vastly different. Xianxia had no choice but to use the strongest fighters under her command. The roars from beasts caused the world to tremble as if thousands of horses were galloping across the plain. The demon cavalry charged out, riding on the hideous demon beasts. These burly figures plunged into the battlefield and none of the barbarians could stop them. Everywhere they passed, barbarians were routed and tossed about. It was at this moment that the tide of battle turned to favor the demons. The rest of the demons, following behind their cavalry, immediately launched a counterattack on the ancient barbarians. The sharp arrows shot by the aerial cavalry did not have much effect either this time as the hides of the demon beasts were too tough and bulky, causing the sharp arrows to simply tickle them. "It's time for us to make a move," Yu and Lu announced in unison, their expressions solemn. The dozen shamans of different realms had been fulfilling a support role from the rear the whole time. Some of the older shamans were still calm, but the young shamans were obviously nervous. It was a huge impact for them to see so many casualties in their first real battle. But they were the key to curb the momentum of the demon cavalry. The elite guards surrounding the shamans marched towards the battlefield, drawing Xianxia's gaze towards them as she frowned. Although she did not know what the barbarians were doing now, a sense of uneasiness fluttered in her heart. "You're finished." A voice suddenly came from nearby. Xianxia was shocked, and when she turned her head around, she immediately saw a green man beside her. Xianxia's heart almost jumped out of her well-endowed chest. With her strength, how could she not notice her enemy's arrival, or even approach? If this man had directly launched a sneak attack, would she have been able to react? I most likely would not have been able to survive. But why is this man not watching over his people while they fight? Why did he suddenly appear here instead? As if she had thought of something, Xianxia smiled. "Are you thinking about surrendering yourself into the arms of the great demon god?" Yang Kai turned his head to look at her, grinning. "Still considering my options. Of course, if you can remove the green poison, I will consider it more sincerely." Xianxia sneered. "In your dreams, the green demon poison cannot be removed unless you become my slave." Yang Kai frowned and asked, "Is that really the only way?" Xianxia answered, "The only way." Yang Kai nodded. Xianxia smiled charmingly as she teased. "The past 2 days haven't been good, right? To be honest, I'm surprised that you can still maintain consciousness. But the more you persist, the more pain you will be in." Yang Kai sighed. "Right now, I do feel some slight degree of pain." Xianxia tilted her head. I can't tell at all. Yang Kai grinned. Men always have to appear strong, don't they? Xianxia elegantly smiled. You are indeed qualified to be my slave. I can assure you that after you undergo demonification, I will allow you to keep your consciousness. There won't be the slightest difference from before. Yang Kai raised his brows. I can still retain my consciousness? But why did my demonized clansmen? Xianxia curled her lips and replied in disdain. They are nothing but a bunch of disposable pawns, not worth the price I would have to pay to keep them sane. But you are different. It is worth some sacrifice on my part to keep a master like you clear-minded. You flatter me. I really don't know how to repay you. Yang Kai smiled gently. Xianxia giggled. Just be obedient. So, shall we start now? Yang Kai turned his head and looked at her. Xianxia's smile narrowed and she looked over at the battlefield, only to see that the demons were falling into a rout. After the dozen or so shamans moved to the front, a series of powerful shamanic spells were released, forcing the demon cavalry to retreat. Some of the advantages they had obtained disappeared, and if it were not for the sand demon's continuous harassment, the demon cavalry would have been wiped out already. But even so, the situation for the demon race was not optimistic. Since the battle began, more than half of their army had been lost, and the losses continued to accumulate. On the contrary, the barbarian army was becoming increasingly confident and spirited. I need to pay a steep price to make you my slave, so what can you give me in return? Xianxia suddenly turned her head to look at Yang Kai. What do you need? Yang Kai asked. Xianxia raised her hand and pointed to the front. I want to see your sincerity. Only with enough sincerity can you win my trust. Decide for yourself. Your time is running out. Yang Kai grinned meaningfully. Simple enough. When his words fell, he had already swooped into the battlefield, and anything that came his way was killed with a single hit. None of the demons could resist his advance. His bloody appearance did not displease Xianxia though, and instead, she watched with relish. Her eyes glued on Yang Kai's body as a strange light flashed across their depths. The demons backed away and evaded Yang Kai, obviously aware that he was not someone they could contend with. A moment later, Yang Kai arrived at the front line of the battle between the two armies. Sir, why are you? You suddenly noticed Yang Kai's presence, and said with a dazed expression, Did you come from that side? His own camp was at the rear, but Yang Kai had clearly come over from the demon side just now. Moreover, as the commander of an army, it was an unwise move to appear inexplicably on the battlefield where the two armies were facing each other instead of issuing orders from the rear. Just as she was about to persuade him to leave, she suddenly had a vague feeling something bad was about to happen. Lu felt the same way, and looked up at Yang Kai vigilantly. Sir, what are you planning to do? Yang Kai smiled lightly at the twins. Come with me. The twins fell silent for a moment before slowly shaking their heads. The other shamans were also confused by this situation and exchanged looks with one another. It's not good to be disobedient. Have you forgotten what Sir Shaman Dang said when he gave both of you to me? Yang Kai looked at them sternly, a sense of majesty in his expression. You quickly replied, If Sir's intentions are really for the benefit of the barbarian race, we will naturally not disobey. But now, aren't you planning to submit to the demon race? What? All the shamans were shocked and could not believe what they heard. In unison, they looked up at Yang Kai, hoping that he would deny it. But instead of denying it, he just smiled and commented, You do have very keen insight. You added, There's only one way to detoxify the green demon poison, and that is to be transformed into a demon. Sir, you really disappoint us. The shamans instantly understood what the situation was all about from that short exchange. Sir Shaman Yo was afflicted by the green demon poison, and he obviously did not want to die, so he had to take refuge under the demon race. The twins, Yu and Lu, seemed to have understood his intentions a long time ago and had been preparing for this. What should we do now? This was the Shaman Yo clan's first real battle, and the 12 units of the army had worked together almost flawlessly to achieve a huge victory. But at this critical moment, their leader was betraying them. The sudden change made everyone lose the ability to think, and their heads spun in confusion. You are very smart. No wonder you were able to enter the Shaman Divine Temple. But even if you know, what can you do? Yang Kai chuckled lightly and stretched out one hand towards the twins, and instantly, a brilliant flash of light blinded everyone. The twins' complexion changed drastically. Although they knew Shaman Yo was strong, they did not know that he was this strong. The two of them did not even have time to react before their bodies were petrified. Neither of them even knew what kind of technique Yang Kai used. Yang Kai stretched out his large hands to grab the twins, seizing them as easily as if they were two chicks. In front of everyone's eyes, the twins looked frightened and uneasy, but could not help being drawn over to Yang Kai, who then took them and flew back to the demon race's side. The rest of the shamans watched, as chills spread out from every pore of their bodies, freezing them all in place. Xianxia's proud laughter resounded across the whole battlefield, a grating sound in every ancient barbarian's ears. A figure suddenly flashed in front of the trio. It was Taya who blocked the way. At the same time, Yu and Lu revealed a look of surprise and pleaded in unison. "Madam, Shaman Yo has defected to the demon race. Quickly stop him." After getting closer during their time together, Yu and Lu learnt that Taya was also a shaman grandmaster, the same realm as Shaman Yo, so perhaps she could successfully stop him. Taya turned a deaf ear to them, however, and just stood still, staring at Yang Kai. Yang Kai also stopped, squinted at Taya, and asked, "Do you want to stop me?" Taya fell silent for a moment before quietly moving aside to make way for him, causing the light of hope in Yu and Lu's eyes to vanish. Yang Kai nodded and flew past Taya, taking Yu and Lu with him. "Be careful," Taya whispered so softly that if one had not been paying very close attention, they would not have heard her. Yang Kai flew off and soon disappeared. "The battle is not over yet. What are you all just standing around for?" Taya shouted at the shamans below and took the lead in charging ahead. She fluttered lightly and dived into the battle. From time to time, while she was slaying the demons with her agile skills, her hands would release a burst of light as she cast shamanic spells, granting all kinds of support to the barbarian warriors around her. Seeing her like this, the 13 remaining shamans regained their spirit and gradually stabilized their minds. Their incantations sounded again and the light of shamanic spells flickered repeatedly. On the other side, Yang Kai landed on the ground and loosened his grip on Yu and Lu, who fell to the ground. The twins glared at him fuming as if a volcano was hidden in their eyes. After staring at Yang Kai, they took a glance at the half-naked Xianxia with their teeth clenched. While feeling humiliated at their current situation, they also felt angry at Yang Kai's cowardness. If they had known that Shaman Yo was such a person, they would never have agreed to follow him. "Is this sincerity enough for you?" Yang Kai questioned, smiling at Xianxia. Xianxia smiled meaningfully as she looked down at Yu and Lu before looking back at Yang Kai and slowly shaking her head. Yang Kai frowned. "They are the heart of 3,000 barbarians of my clan. I have captured them for you. How is this not good enough?" Xianxia raised her hand lightly and casually pointed to Lu. "Kill her!" As soon as these words came out, the faces of Yu and Lu changed. "Kill her and I will believe you." Xianxia looked at Yang Kai with her head tilted, a trace of provocation apparent in her eyes. She was not a fool. Although this barbarian shaman grandmaster was poisoned by the green demon poison and showed intentions to submit, that alone was not enough to win her trust. This was her last test. If this barbarian shaman grandmaster could kill his former subordinate without hesitation, she would not doubt his intention to surrender. Otherwise, she would assume this was all a trick to get close to her and save himself. Xianxia was feeling somewhat conflicted right now. She hoped that this barbarian shaman grandmaster would insist until the end and would rather die than give in, because struggling prey was the best prey. On the other hand, she did not want him to die just like that. She sincerely wished he would become her obedient slave and follow her every command. Therefore, she also had no idea which choice she hoped this man would make. She observed his face carefully, hoping to see hesitation and struggle, which would at least entertain her for a bit. However, to her amazement, Yang Kai just walked forward silently after listening to her order, without the slightest hesitation. The twins' faces changed drastically as Yu summoned her courage and stood in front of her sister, glaring at Yang Kai and shouting sternly, "Kill me, but let her go." Yang Kai stood in front of her like an insurmountable mountain, looking down at her as he nodded lightly. What a touching display of sisterhood, but too bad. With a loud thud, Yang Kai sent Yu flying several dozen meters with a kick, sending her crashing into the ground as she spurted blood from her mouth. "This is Madame Xianxia's first order, so I have to obey it." Yang Kai grasped Lu's slender neck as he declared and slowly lifted her up. Lu struggled hard, her face turning red, but she couldn't shake off Yang Kai's grip with just her physical strength. The struggle she displayed with her hands and feet only made her look more miserable in the end. Yu choked on her blood as she shouted, "Let her go!" Struggling to her feet, she screamed and tried to rush back, but was firmly subdued by a black shadow at that moment. Yang Kai's grip on Lu's neck tightened and his shaman strength began to surge, releasing an extremely dangerous aura, perhaps due to their heart resonance. The struggling Lu suddenly turned her head and looked at her elder sister, and Yu stared back in sorrow. Their eyes met, and Lu gently opened her mouth, but no sound came out. You knew that she was saying goodbye. "No!" Yu shrieked desperately. Pung! A mass of blood suddenly burst out and Lu, who was lifted by Yang Kai, exploded directly in his hand, leaving not even bones behind, only a mist of blood and minced flesh that sprinkled down to the ground. Yu's scream suddenly ceased as her whole body froze, as if she had just lost her soul. She stared at the blood mist covering the sky, and could not believe that her little sister, who was still close to her just a moment ago, had met such a miserable end. 2 streaks of tears fell silently from the corners of her eyes. She did not cry out loud, but her eyes became piercingly cold, glaring at Yang Kai with unforgivable hatred. If possible, she would bite Shaman Nyo to death, feast on his flesh, drink his blood, gnaw his bones to devour every last trace of him. Ha 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 ha! Xianxia suddenly burst into a frenzied laugh, her whole body trembling, looking extremely elated. It was as if the scene that just happened in front of her gave unprecedented satisfaction. Yang Kai ignored Yu's resentful gaze and turned to Xianxia. "Madam, is this sincerity enough?" "Enough." Xianxia nodded with satisfaction. Now, she truly believed that Yang Kai was sincere about surrendering to her. "Come," Xianxia called as if summoning a pet. Yang Kai walked up to her and stood in front of her. "Kneel down," Xianxia ordered again. Yang Kai frowned and shook his head. "Sorry, my legs hurt, so I can't kneel down." The smile on Xianxia's face immediately disappeared and she looked coldly at Yang Kai. "How dare you disobey my orders? Do you want to die?" Yang Kai replied faintly. "There are some things you can abandon in life, but some things must be insisted upon. Madam, you are a woman, and you don't understand the pride and perseverance of a man." Xianxia curled her lip. "Ridiculous. You can even kill your own subordinate, but you can't kneel to me?" Yang Kai shrugged his shoulders. "I'd rather die." They exchanged looks, with Yang Kai staring back steadily at Xianxia, a lofty and imposing aura exuding from his being. After a long stare, Xianxia curled her lip again. She found that this shaman grandmaster was a man who meant every word he said, and such stubborn perseverance did not annoy her and instead actually made her a little excited. Only by taming such a rebellious slave could she have a sense of achievement. "Good. Since you have proved your sincerity, it's my turn." Saying so, Xianxia approached Yang Kai gracefully and gently tapped her finger on his forehead. A black ancient demon chi suddenly flowed out of Xianxia's fingertip. The nature of this ancient demon chi was similar to that encountered by the Shaman Nyo clan in the abandoned village, but there were some key differences. When comparing, Xianxia's demon chi was undoubtedly stronger, purer, and more invasive. After forcing out her ancient demon chi, Xianxia's face suddenly showed a trace of fatigue. This procedure obviously took a great toll on her. The ancient demon chi was like a living creature, and after circling around Xianxia's fingertips several times, it seeped into Yang Kai's body. Yongkai grunted and took 2 steps back. A faint black tinge immediately permeated around his body. The black tinge was like a burning flame, burning away all the green demon poison wherever it passed. The green radiance disappeared and was replaced by a strange and heavy darkness. Is it done? Yongkai frowned. Xianxia lightly smiled. You are now a member of the demon clan. Even if you can withstand my demon chi without dying, you still need something more to become my slave. Yongkai responded, I am willing to serve madam. Very good. Xianxia nodded with satisfaction. Next, Xianxia opened my mouth and spat out something about the size of a fist. You, who had been watching coldly from the side, narrowed her eyes at this moment because this thing looked exactly like a heart. A black heart that was even now beating rhythmically. Xianxia held this heart in her hand, and with each beat it made, a strange power was released from it, giving one who heard and felt it a sense of uneasiness and dizziness. Yongkai looked at this heart with relish. Xianxia smiled faintly and explained, This is my demon heart. Is it okay for madam to take it out like this? Yongkai asked with concern. Won't it have any impact on you? Xianxia replied with a chuckle. For us demons, every master who achieves success in cultivation has their own demon heart, and as long as the demon heart remains, the demon race will not die. Didn't your ancestors tell you about this? Yongkai answered, This is my first time hearing of it. Staring at the demon heart with hot light, Yongkai continued, In other words, this thing is your foundation? That's right. Xianxia nodded slightly. Can I take a look? Yongkai observed the demon heart curiously. Xianxia looked up with a meaningful gaze, as if she was wondering if he just asked the question casually, or he had some sort of scheme planned. You suddenly held her breath, nervously. From what Xianxia could see, Yongkai did not seem suspicious but was genuinely curious about the demon heart. Xianxia smiled lightly and unexpectedly through the demon heart to him as she instructed softly, Be careful. Don't break it. Yongkai took it over and played with it. He was so nervous that she could even hear her own heartbeat. She looked at Yongkai with expectation and temporarily forgot that he was her sister's murderer. There was only one thought screaming in her mind now. Crush the demon heart. If Yongkai could crush the demon heart and kill the demon king in front of him, Lu's death would not have been in vain. If Yongkai really did so, everything that happened earlier would have been just for show and worth it. The purpose of him joining the demon clan would have been just to find an opportunity to kill this demon king. Even if Lu died because of this, she still could forgive him. To her disappointment though, Yongkai simply examined the demon heart in his hand for a long time, not showing any signs of making a move. What are you hesitating about? Just crush it. You finally could not help crying out. Xianxia glanced at her with a grin, and her eyes full of ridicule. Yongkai tilted his head and tossed the demon heart back. What now? Did you take your demon heart out just for me to see? Seeing this scene, Yu's face immediately turned pale, and she collapsed to the ground as if she had lost all her strength. Shaman Yo really submitted to the demon clan, and Lu had died in vain. It was ridiculous that she still had any expectations for this coward just now, and she felt shameful to even have such an idea. The moment Xianxia took back her demon heart, she beamed and looked quite satisfied. Of course, it's not just for you to see. As she spoke, without making any actions, the demon heart in her hand leaked a drop of black blood that seemed to be filled with unimaginable power. Xianxia sent the drop of blood floating towards Yongkai and ordered with a smile, Drink it, and from now on, you are mine. Without hesitation, Yongkai drank the demon blood, grunting as the dark aura on his body became richer. Xianxia chuckled and praised Yongkai. You made a wise choice. Many thanks for giving me this chance. Yongkai replied indifferently. Now. Xianxia stepped forward and looked at the chaotic battlefield. At this time, the army of the demon clan was about to collapse and even the prided cavalry under her command was unable to turn the tide. However, Xianxia's eyes did not show even the slightest fluster, and instead were filled with confidence in her victory. She raised her hand and remarked, Let's end this ridiculous battle. The commander of the barbarian race army had surrendered to her already, so although there were many enemies left, Xianxia was not worried at all. As long as she joined hands with her newly recruited slave, victory would not be a problem. By the way, I don't know your name yet, Xianxia asked without looking back. Shaman Niu. My name is Shaman Niu, Yang Kai replied. As he spoke, power overflowed from his body, and a golden light suddenly bloomed from his feet and shot deep into the ground. The next moment, several dull thuds rang out from below the surface. In that instant, all the sand demons hidden underground were killed by Yang Kai without any chance to resist. Xianxia was stunned, but before she could turn around, she felt a sharp pain in her chest. Looking down, she saw the tip of a broad sword piercing through her full bosoms, spilling a copious amount of blood. Xianxia's beautiful eyes quivered violently, unable to believe what she was seeing. You too, exclaimed in surprise, shocked by the sudden changes in front of her eyes. Madam, how do you feel? Yang Kai's casual voice came from behind, as if he was asking her how the weather was. Xianxia choked a few times, and blood overflowed the corners of her lips as she questioned viciously. How can you disobey my will after drinking my demon blood? If this was even a possibility, she would never have been so careless and rashly exposed her back to Shaman Niu. Shaman Niu had already passed all her tests perfectly. When she demanded he show her sufficient sincerity, he had unhesitantly captured 2 of his shaman subordinates and even killed one in front of her. Although Xianxia had seemingly thrown her demon heart to him next without wariness, that too was a test. If Shaman Niu revealed his true intentions at that time, Xianxia still had a way to resolve the situation. She would not die even if her demon heart was really crushed. Nevertheless, he did not show any signs of betrayal at all and simply returned the demon heart after examining it for a while. If he really was planning to betray her, that would have been the best time to do it. Therefore, from that moment on, Xianxia truly believed him. Drinking her demon blood was the last assurance, because after that, he would be under her control and she could order him to do anything while he would not have even the slightest power to resist. That was why she confidently turned her back to him. But what she received in return was actually a betrayal, a devastating blow. There were no previous signs of treachery, as if it was just in that moment that he decided to change his mind. But such a decisive move was obviously premeditated. Her demon heart was in excruciating pain and Xianxia could clearly feel that it had been pierced by a sharp weapon. Even as a demon king, she could not help trembling and almost collapsed to the ground. Ha ha ha! Instead of being angry though, Xianxia laughed as she turned her head with some difficulty to glance sideways at Yang Kai and sneered. In order to win my trust, you were even willing to kill one of your subordinates? Everything has a price, Yang Kai replied lightly. Xianxia looked up at you, who was not far away, and stated, Did you hear that? You are just a tool in his eyes. He can sacrifice all of you when necessary. You frowned, but her emotions didn't fluctuate much. When she saw Yang Kai suddenly attack Xianxia, she knew that her guess was correct. Sure enough, Sir Shaman Niu really behaved the way he did just to get close to the Demon King, even going so far as to kill her sister without the slightest hesitation. Was Lu's death not worthless anymore? Don't try to sow dissension. Don't forget that your life is in my hands now. Yang Kai sneered lightly. Xianxia continued with a resentful look. How did you do it? What she could not understand was that Yang Kai was able to go against her will. In theory, after drinking her demon blood, all of Yang Kai's inner thoughts would not be able to escape her perception. She would have known the moment the other party had even the slightest thought of rebellion. However, she did not realize his ill intention until he pierced her demon heart. How could the blood of her devil heart not work on him? No comment, Yang Kai replied, pushing his spiritual energy madly and engulfing Xianxia in it in the next moment. Xianxia instinctively wanted to resist it, but with a slight tug of Yang Kai's myriad sword, the severe pain made her give up. A seemingly invisible whirlpool surged, and Xianxia suddenly disappeared into the revolving vortex. Yang Kai shook the blood off the myriad sword and sighed lightly. The shadow demons who had been guarding Xianxia were all dumbstruck and even now had not come out of their daze. Yang Kai wiped the myriad sword with 2 fingers, inspiring its sword light before releasing it in all directions, causing a great spurt of blood as all the shadow demons were instantly killed. You regained her freedom at that moment and looked at Yang Kai with a complicated expression, trying not to hate the person in front of her. However, the image of his sister's tragic death was constantly replaying in her mind, making such a thing impossible. Lu isn't dead. Yang Kai grinned at her. What? You was stunned. What did you say? Did I hear wrong? Or did he make some kind of mistake? Lu exploded right in front of me. How could she not be dead? Yang Kai tilted his head and pondered. I thought you twins had a heart resonance and should be able to feel something. I didn't expect you to be unable to sense anything. But I suppose it can't be helped with a world barrier between you at the moment. You did not understand what he was talking about, but what she saw the next moment brought tears to her face. You only saw Yang Kai silently waving his hand, and Lu, who was supposed to have exploded into a blood mist, suddenly reappeared in front of her. What I crushed was another dead body, Yang Kai explained. In the previous action, he turned his back to Xianxia, so Xianxia did not see some details clearly. The moment before he crushed Lu, Yang Kai actually threw her into the sealed world bead, while summoning a dead body that he had conveniently collected from the battlefield. This was a risk, as any small mistakes would be enough to let Xianxia see through his deception. Fortunately, although Yang Kai was only a shaman grandmaster, he had the experience and methods of an emperor realm master, so he was pretty proficient in this kind of little trick. Yu's eyes instantly filled with tears. Lu was still a little confused. She did not know what happened, only remembering that Shaman Yo lifted her by her neck just now and then. In a flash, she had entered a quiet, mysterious world. In that world, she was trapped in an empty place with an area about 30 meters wide, unable to leave. When she attempted to escape, she would immediately find herself back in her original place. After hearing her elder sister's voice, though, Lu's first reaction was to move closer before turning a vigilant look to Yang Kai. You declared, Sir Shaman Yo didn't betray us. Everything just now was an act in order to win the trust of the Demon King. Lu was stunned. That was all just an act? When Yang Kai grasped her neck and lifted her up, she was certain she was about to die because the emotionless look in his eyes really seemed like he was going to kill her. You nodded. Yeah. Thanks to Sir Shaman Yo, that Demon King was killed? Xianxia disappeared for no reason, so you did not know what her fate was. Yang Kai smiled at them and explained, She suffered a little loss from our first 2 encounters, so if I didn't find a way to win her trust, she never would have let her guard down around me. She also had the help of her sand demons and would have been able to escape at any time. I don't know what other tricks she had, so I could only use this bad plan. In short, I'm sorry for frightening you too. The twins shook their heads together, and you replied, It's nothing, but I had some misunderstandings about Sir before. Yang Kai waved his hand. It's normal for you to have doubts in such a situation. And, enough talk, we should put an end to this battle now. Afterwards, the battle ended very quickly. The demon race was already at a huge disadvantage with numerous casualties while Xianxia pinned all hopes on Yang Kai turning to her side. But at the last moment, he was the one who delivered the killing blow. Without their commander, the demon race army was just a pile of loose sand. There was no coordination between the various troops, so they could only crash forward instinctively, but such a strategy was easily overcome by the ancient barbarians. When Yang Kai led the twins back to the war, the situation had already become a one-sided slaughter. The light of shamanic spells continued to flicker and blossom while demons fell one after another. Even the most powerful demons could not display any of their skills in front of such a united barbarian army. The sand demons who were good at escaping wanted to flee, but found that the earth no longer sheltered them for some reason. The vast ground was dyed golden by the light of shamanic spells, and no matter how they used their innate divine ability, they could not escape and were killed off one by one. The shadow demons, who could come and go without a trace, had also lost their advantages. Under the blessing of the Eagle Eye spell, the aerial cavalry were able to locate these stealthy figures and shoot them dead one arrow after another. As for the most powerful demon cavalry, they had long ago been wiped out, leaving only their roaring demon beasts behind. Screams reverberated continuously across the wilderness, horrifying anyone who heard them. This was a victory for the barbarian race, a brilliant victory for the Shaman Yo clan. The last demon fell, leaving the ancient barbarians panting heavily as they looked around with their scarlet-filled eyes, only to see no enemies remaining. Murderous intent permeated the surrounding world. The clansmen stood on top of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood like undefeated gods of war, looking awe-inspiring and invincible. A warrior raised the weapon in his hand and roared into the sky, venting his excitement and joy. More clansmen followed suit, and the successive roars were enough to arouse heaven and earth, darkening the sun and the moon. Xianxia, veiled in black qi, flew into the air and looked around. He inspected every inch of the surrounding several dozen kilometers with his divine sense, and only after confirming that no fish had slipped through the net did he announce, "Clean up the battlefield and count the wounded." The 10 main units received the order, and each became busy under the leadership of their captain. After this war, everyone had the highest level of respect for their commander. The dozen shamans looked at Xianxia with worry. However, after all, the demon chi on Sir Shaman Yo was so obvious, and no one knew whether he would actually be transformed into a demon. If that happened, this victory would be meaningless. If the commander underwent demonification, any victory, regardless of how big it was, would still be a failure. As if he read their thoughts, Xianxia glanced at them and said without explaining, "You and Lu, take some people with you to the demon cave over there and begin inspecting it. This will be our base for the next few months." Yes. The twins received the order and immediately rushed towards Demon Cave along with the elite guards. Soon, the report for the number of casualties in this war came out. More than 200 of the 3,000 clansmen in the Shaman Yo clan were killed, which was almost equivalent to an entire combat unit, and almost all of the remaining barbarians were injured. Such a loss could be regarded as a miracle and was mainly a result of Xianxia's carelessness. Her overconfidence had allowed the ancient barbarians to achieve such a lopsided victory. She had placed all of her focus on Xianxia, but was disappointed in the end. In this battle, more than 3,000 demons were killed, and there were even some captives taken. The real demons were already dead, while those captured were the ancient barbarians who had been demonized. These barbarians were sent by Xianxia to serve as the vanguard and were the first enemies the Shaman Yo clan encountered. Although Xianxia had told his clansmen to not show mercy in battle, ultimately many clansmen chose not to kill in the face of their fellow barbarians. Therefore, many demonized clansmen survived. However, they were still mindless slaves to the demon race at this moment. The more than a dozen shamans gathered in one place, trying hard to save these clansmen without any idea if their efforts would bear fruit. In addition to these demonized clansmen, the Shaman Yo clan had also captured several dozen demon beasts from this war. It was much easier to handle the demon beasts, as they already had experience with the demon beast which Xianxia brought back after his initial infiltration of the demon cave. The shamans tried a few methods and were pleasantly surprised to find that the beast taming spell actually worked on these demon beasts. Although the demon beasts were more difficult to tame than regular barbarian beasts, as long as the beast taming spell worked, these demon beasts could become mounts of the Shaman Yo clan, with these several dozen demon beasts being sufficient to form a small cavalry unit. The heroics of the aerial cavalry had long been envied by the other clansmen, and their desire to be able to perform similar feats was aroused again at the sight of the majestic demon cavalry earlier. And now the opportunity had come. There were only a few dozen demon beasts, quite a small number compared to an army of 3,000 barbarians. Moreover, the demon beasts were not something that everyone could control. Even if a shaman used a beast taming spell to domesticate it, the demon chi these demon beasts naturally exuded could not be eliminated. To be able to ride on such a thing, one must first have the ability to resist the corruption of the demon chi. All these factors led to only the most powerful warriors being qualified to ride these demon beasts and become members of the cavalry. Without any rest, the Shaman Yo clan, after experiencing a big battle, spent an entire day cleaning up the battlefield. Thousands of people dug a large pit together not far away into which all the bodies of the demons were thrown. The shamans then worked together to light up a large fire that filled half of the sky with orange light, incinerating the bodies and releasing a disgusting smell of burnt flesh into the surroundings. The situation at the demon cave was also made clear during this time. Xianxia never thought that she would lose this battle, so she basically invested all of her available combat power, leaving just a few demons behind in the demon cave. When the twins and the elite guards entered, the demons who were left behind were killed before they even had time to react. The demon cave that was hidden in the mountainside instantly changed its ownership and became the Shaman Yo clan's base camp. The clansmen spent the next few days recuperating. After all, everyone was exhausted after such a big fight, especially considering the aftereffects of the bloodlust spell that even the strongest clansmen could not avoid. In other words, they would not have much combat effectiveness for the next few days. If a large number of demons launched an offensive at this time, everyone would probably be slaughtered. The dozen shamans did not stop working either despite their exhaustion. They had to treat the demonized clansmen, tame the captured demon beasts, and use shamanic spells to heal the injured clansmen, making all of them wish they could split themselves into 10 or 20 clones. Yu and Lu's complexion had been pale for the past few days due to lack of rest and overdrawn shaman strength. Even Taya was overexerting herself, not to mention the other shaman warriors and shaman apprentices. At times they would just fall onto the ground, snoring loudly, then wake up in a shock after a short rest, quickly wiping the drool from the corners of their mouths before continuing their work. Xianxia was nowhere to be seen during this time. After coming to the demon cave, he occupied a stone room that formerly belonged to Demon King Xianxia, and anyone who came to see him was ignored. No one knew his current condition. In their private discussions, the shamans expressed their worries for their commander, fearing he would suddenly turn into a demon and they would be thrown into an internal war. Naturally, Xianxia couldn't become demonized. His condition was unexpectedly good, except for the lingering demon chi. He first noticed something off when he was contaminated by the green demon poison as, while it was not the most powerful poison in the demon race, it was definitely the most mysterious and difficult to deal with. It was complex, impossible to guard against, and had no other antidote other than submitting oneself to the demon race and undergoing demonification. It was precisely because of this feature that the Green Demon Clan did not have much status in the demon race's 100 clans, because their poison did not work on other demons and was only useful against other races. But despite Xianxia having been afflicted with the green demon poison, he did not feel the slightest discomfort, which led him to a vague conclusion. In order to verify this speculation, he even took the risk of swallowing a drop of Xianxia's demon blood essence. As expected, even the blood of Xianxia's demon heart did not affect him, only changing the aura of his body slightly while eliminating the green demon poison. Is it the ancient demon chi? Xianxia mused to himself. In his dantian was sealed an extremely pure ancient demon chi. Outside of Maplewood City, he was invaded by this ancient demon chi and transformed into a nearly mindless demon. It was only thanks to the sealing power of the firmament tree that he was able to regain himself. After that transformation experience, Xianxia figured he had developed a strong resistance to demon chi. Unless the contaminated demon chi was purer and stronger than the ancient demon chi in his dantian, it should be impossible for it to affect him. But whether it was the green demon poison or Xianxia's demon heart blood essence, both were a far cry from the existence in his dantian. Therefore, they couldn't have any effect on him. If even Xianxia's demon heart blood was completely inferior, just what was that ancient one-eyed great demon? Could it have been a demon saint? Xianxia thought this was possible but had a vague feeling that the one-eyed great demon he saw through the memories contained in the ancient demon chi was probably a different kind of demon altogether. Because the demonic warhammer currently owned by the embodiment was the weapon of the ancient one-eyed great demon, and the demonic warhammer was of extremely high grade, no worse than a peak-grade emperor artifact. An ordinary demon could not possibly possess such a weapon. Only true masters of the demon race would be qualified to wield such a treasure. Based on that memory, countless ancient powerhouses gathered together, burning the very essence of their lives in order to kill the one-eyed great demon. After most of these ancient masters sacrificed themselves for this noble cause, they managed to destroy the one-eyed great demon's body, but its single eye remained indestructible, and those who were left were forced to seal it instead. After countless years, the seal was partially destroyed and Maplewood City was thrown into a catastrophe. During that incident, Xianxia obtained the demon eye and merged with it. This was one of the trump cards he possessed, one he did not dare play rashly.